Hello, welcome to the show. Welcome to Not Just Nintendo, a video game podcast that is about Nintendo, but it's not just Nintendo here at Not Just Nintendo, as I talk about other video games as well. Welcome to the show, everyone. This is episode 24, and it's our last episode of July. Now, I've got to preface the show by saying, in the last week, I've barely played any video games. I have only a little bit to talk about. It's going to be like a couple minutes and I'll be done. And really, there's just not much to say. I was looking for a bunch of news, and honestly, I couldn't find much news either. So really, I have almost nothing to talk about on the show, and that is why I have hobbled together a list of games I want to see on Switch 2. I did this a couple months ago, like before the Switch 2 was out. I think it was like in April, maybe I did it. I guess it's actually quite a few months ago now. But you know, now I've decided, you know what? Now that the Switch 2 is out, we've actually seen a couple of those ideas in fruition. Now I can maybe do another one, and I can update it, and things have come out and stuff, and so it'll be a little different this time. So that's mostly what this episode's gonna be. I'm not gonna say anything about the length. I don't really know. I will say one thing that initially might sound really bad for the podcast, but I think will actually end up being good. So I said last week that, before the podcast was coming out on Wednesdays, and now it has been moved to Tuesdays. This is actually the first episode where the podcast is on Tuesday. If you didn't watch the last episode, you might be a little confused. But yes, the podcast has been moved to Tuesday. Tuesday is now the podcast day, starting this episode. But I've decided to make another change. And now the podcast, I'm going to do it every other week rather than every week, which means you'll get podcast episodes half as often. Now that sounds like a really bad thing. It sounds like, really awful, but I will say this, I was thinking about just quitting the podcast altogether. Because here's the problem, right? It feels like week after week, I don't play enough games to talk about on the show, and I struggle to come up with enough news topics for the show. And then I can't make a very long show, and the length I can get out of it feels like fluff. And I don't want to do that because that, it's just not a good episode, right? I don't want to do stuff like that. So they fluctuate a lot. Like you have like one episode where the Switch 2 comes out and Summer Games Fest happens, and that's a super long 3-hour episode and it's super cool. But then you have an episode like last week where, yes, I'm talking about Bananza, but really, like, I don't have that much to say, and it goes on for 45 minutes, and that's it. So I don't want crazy variability like that. So that's why I'm deciding to do this. I figure, for one, when school starts back up, it'll be a lot easier, and actually when Marching Band starts up here quite soon, it'll be a lot easier for me to make the episodes. It'll be a lot less stress for me. But I'll also hopefully have done more, especially on times where I was busy. If I'm super busy in a week, then, maybe I'll be less busy the next week. Or even if I'm quite busy over 2 weeks, I might now have more time still. I'll come to a show having played a few hours of games rather than a single hour. So I think this is ultimately going to be a good thing for the podcast. It is going to mean, obviously, the episodes go up a little slower, right? Episode 30, rather than being 7 weeks away, is now 14, right? So it's a while, right? But I think that's okay. I don't think the podcast needs to be every week, because at the end of the day, I would rather be focusing on making actual videos. For those of you who don't know, I started a Minecraft channel, another YouTube channel. I'm making videos over there now, and I think so far things are going pretty well on the Minecraft channel, and I have a lot of big plans for it. I have some big plans for this channel still, so I don't really want to be distracting myself too much with this podcast. I enjoy doing the podcast, and I think the podcast is a great thing because it's me talking with less editing. Nothing's ever scripted. I mean, I guess, I might write down a few ideas, but it's never scripted like it is with the actual videos. Because with my other videos, I do often script those things, or at least, not lightly scripted, right? Get some rough ideas and stuff. And so I think having an unscripted thing where I kind of sit around and talk, I think that's a better thing. And also, maybe when I start doing it every other week, I'll have more time to potentially plan with some friends of mine, and we can maybe even do podcasts with multiple people. So, I put out a poll on YouTube and Discord. Really, nobody responded to it. I got like one response on YouTube. But basically, I've just decided myself, I'm like, you know what? And thanks to a couple people in my Discord, I've decided every other week is probably the best strategy for the podcast because, again, now I can make other videos, but the podcast can still come out, and when it does come out, it'll be longer. More will happen. There'll be more to talk about, and I think I'll be more excited to do it as well, right? Because I'll be like, oh, nice, haven't done this in a little while, right? So that's what I'm gonna do. Podcast is gonna be every other week from here for the foreseeable future. I don't know. Maybe we'll get to a point in like January or something. I become a lot less busy in the January to March, April area. Maybe when we get there again, maybe I'll be like, oh, maybe I'll go back to weekly. And maybe when we get to summer next year, maybe we'll go back to weekly. But for now, I'm gonna do every other week, probably at least through November. I'm gonna say probably because that's when I'll get a little less busy again. So we'll see what happens. I'm not gonna really put a time frame on it. Maybe I'll be every other week forever, right? I mean, who knows? We'll see what happens, and we'll see if this schedule works out better. Um, but yes, that's what we're doing. So, I hope you guys all are not too upset about it. I think ultimately, like I said, I think it'll make for better podcast episodes. I know my favorite video game podcast does every other week episodes, and so I don't think it's like a awful thing to do. It also means that when I do make videos, because I'll be able to make more videos, when I do make them, hopefully, if I manage to make 2 in a week, then I can put one out on Wednesdays, and I can, and I don't have to worry about having just made a video or something, so I think it will work out better this way. And I guess I should just, I should probably just stop yapping about it. But yes, that's what we're doing. I might put some more details and stuff over on the Discord server, so you can join the community Discord server down below in the description. There is a link for that. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at on it. That's kind of where I'm at. So, like I said, I do have a couple quick things to talk about from the last week. I played probably another hour or so of Bananza. I told you last time that I was in the ice area, and I had to pick a branching path. And I picked the ice area first, finished up the ice area, I went to the jungle foresty area. And I'm still there. I haven't even completed a full area, whereas last time I had completed tons of areas. It's not that I lost motivation for Bananza. I'm still loving Bananza when I play it. I'll say I got a little out of the groove, though, to be fair. But I think more what it was is trying to make this Minecraft YouTube channel, trying to do other things for YouTube. And also non-YouTube stuff. I've been really well. It's YouTube related, but I've been really trying to clean up my video game collection, organize stuff so I can make this video probably in August. I don't know exactly when I'm gonna do it, but probably sometime middle of August or so. I'm gonna do this video where I show off the game collection. So it's been a lot of stuff like that. A lot of stuff like that. So yeah, anyways, so enough of that. I guess I guess I can move on. So Bananza, like I said, haven't played as much of it in the last week. Actually, I've played barely any, but I did play a little bit more. I'm still liking it. The jungle area so far is actually probably one of my favorite areas. And it's interesting because, again, a lot like Odyssey, right? There's a lot of similarities between Bananza and Odyssey. I talked about that quite a bit last week. And I think, it's very interesting. Like, this kingdom, or this level, I guess I should say, is a lot like the Wooded Kingdom in general vibes, right? And I know in Odyssey, the Wooded Kingdom was a lot of people's favorites, but when I first played Odyssey, the Wooded Kingdom was not really one of my favorites. I mean, I didn't hate the kingdom, right? I thought it was kind of interesting, but I wasn't like loving the Wooded Kingdom. And I've got to say, Bonanza has a very similar thing here with this level instead of the kingdom. And I think I actually do prefer this jungle to the Wooded Kingdom in Odyssey. So I don't know, whatever though. I don't have a whole lot to say about the area because, like I said, I haven't even finished it. But Bonanza, like I said, it's still great. Bonanza's still great. And here's the other thing I want to talk about. So yesterday was Monday. I went out to Walmart because I don't have a GameStop. I complain about it every week, I know. I went out to Walmart and I bought me a Switch 2 Pro controller. I finally have the Pro controller that everybody's been talking about. I actually never had a Switch 1 Pro controller. I played my Switch 1 a lot. I originally, when I had it, I played with Joy-Cons for like a couple years. I mostly just played with Joy-Cons. And then I got a bunch of wired Power A controllers, and that's what I've mostly played the Switch on for the last very long time. And then a little bit in between there, I had a wireless Power A controller that was actually quite similar to a Switch 2 or a Switch 1 Pro controller, but it was a little lower quality and it didn't have the NFC chip and stuff, and the gyro. It didn't have the gyro either, so it was missing a few things. And I played with that controller for quite a while, but then it broke. So I've bounced around a lot, but I generally settled on these wired Power A controllers because I liked them. I thought they were nice controllers. My biggest problem with them that they were too light, right? They weren't heavy enough. And also the D-pad sucked. Although the D-pad sucked on the Switch 1 Pro controller from all I've heard, so. But anyways, I never had a Pro controller. I always wanted one, and I just never really got around to getting one. I don't know, I always, when I had money, I was like, oh, I'll just buy a game instead, and that made more sense. So, Now, eventually a couple years ago, I decided, you know what, maybe I'll just wait for the next console, and I'll buy a Pro Controller there if I want one. And so that's what I've done. I've bought the Switch 2 Pro Controller. I was thinking about buying it closer to launch, but, honestly, I just was buying games and stuff, and now there's a bit of a lull right now with games. There's really just not a whole lot going on. I'm really still holding out for a Nintendo Direct, hopefully in like 2 days. Um, if there's not one in 2 days, then gosh, I don't know. I don't know what we're gonna do. That's gonna be a disaster. So we'll have to see, I suppose. But yeah, I'm a little concerned about that. I've talked about that quite a bit. So we'll see what happens. But anyways, I guess I could talk a little bit about my thoughts on the Switch 2 Pro Controller. So I've heard a lot of people, especially a lot of people that aren't even Nintendo fans, that have said that the Switch 2 Pro Controller is like the best controller ever, or one of the best controllers ever, or it's the best controller right now between the DualSense on the PS5, the Xbox Series X controller, and itself. And it's a great controller. It's fantastic. It's one of the best controllers I've ever felt for sure. And I really, when I held it, I immediately was very fond of it. Right, I liked the way the triggers are there. Obviously everyone's talked about the GL and the GR buttons. They're in the perfect spot, right? I mean, literally, like I feel like no matter how I hold this thing, I'm always sitting right there on the GL and GR buttons, which is fantastic. I like the face buttons, right? I like the ABX and Y. For some reason, I really like the home button and the game chat button and the screenshot button. I really like those. I don't know why I like those so much, but I really do. And I've got to say, you know what? The D-pad is actually not a bad D-pad. It's a pretty nice D-pad. In fact, I think of the three controllers, it's got to be the best D-pad, right? So, there's a lot of things I like about it. I like the joysticks, right? I even like the bumpers and the triggers and stuff. So overall, it's a fantastic controller, but I've got to say, the way it sits in my hands, I'm not like blown away. You know what I mean? Like honestly, I'm somebody who really likes the DualSense controller on the PS5. And I think I just like the texture maybe of it better. So I'm a little mixed because I think I much prefer the buttons of the Switch 2 Pro controller to the PS5 one, and I much prefer the joysticks on the Switch 2 Pro controller. So most things I actually prefer on the Switch 2, but I think I slightly prefer the feel of the DualSense on the PS5. I think it's between those two. I'm gonna say probably the Switch 2 is my favorite of the three controllers right now. But the PS5 controller is very close for me. I know some people say it's too big. I don't think I really have big hands. I don't know. Maybe I do. I don't think so. But I think it fits in my hands very nicely. Um, I don't really love the placement of the joysticks. I know that's kind of PlayStation's thing, right? But that's kind of my biggest annoyance. But yeah, overall, I would say we actually have three really nice controllers right now, this generation. This is probably the generation with the three best controllers. Um, and I even like the Xbox controller. I think it's a nice controller. I just don't exactly love how it feels in the hands. The Xbox controller is definitely my least favorite right now. To be fair, though, I do still use it. I use it on PC, and obviously, if I was going to play anything on Xbox, I'd use it there too. I just don't often play anything on Xbox. But yeah, we've got three really nice controllers right now. And I've got to say, I'm not really mad about having used these Power A controllers for so long because they're pretty comfy too. They're not quite as good. I'll say out of the four controllers I have sitting next to me right now, which happens to be the Xbox controller, my old Switch 1 Power A controller, which I'm now going to put away because I have absolutely no use for, my PS5 controller, and of course the Switch 2 controller. Of those four, the Power A controller is garbage, right? It's by far the worst. Well, you know what? No, actually, I'll say, you know what? I think I actually prefer these like $10 wired Power A controllers. I prefer them, I think, to the Xbox controller because I like the button layout and stuff a little bit better. Even if the Xbox controller feels higher quality, and then the Xbox controller is all right. The PS5 controller is really nice, and then of course the Switch 2 Pro controller. Like I said, it might be the best controller I've held. I'm not exactly totally sold, but if it's not the best, it's the second best for sure. No doubt in my mind. Now I will say I'm coming from an interesting perspective because I haven't used a Switch 1 Pro controller. So most people that were talking about this thing were comparing it to the Switch 1 Pro controller, which obviously makes a lot of sense, right? That's like by far the most logical thing to compare it to. But I don't have that comparison point because I never had a Switch 1 Pro controller. So really, I'm comparing it more to the other controllers around right now. So, but I think either way you compare it, it seems like a really nice controller. Initially, I was like, you know what, maybe the PS5 controller is still better, but I think the more I think about it, I do think this is probably the best controller right now. But I do still like the PS5 controller. I don't think it gets quite enough love. My biggest problem, I guess, with the PS5 controller is probably the D-pad, if you could even call it that. I really don't like that thing very much. It doesn't feel nice. And it's also gotten very worn out, even though I really haven't used it that much. I just feel like it got worn out pretty easily. So, anyways, I guess that's enough controller talk. So, yeah, the Switch 2 Pro controller, I have that now. I've only used it a little bit on Donkey Kong Bonanza, but I'm going to continue to use that. And I imagine from here on out, I'm probably going to basically just use the Pro controller. I don't imagine I'll use much for the Joy-Cons, unless I play in handheld mode, of course, which I don't much. But if I ever do, I'll probably still just use the Joy-Cons, whatever, right? I'm not going to, like, play it in tabletop mode just to use the Pro controller. Like, I'm not that bothered about it, so that's probably what I'm going to do moving forward. And I'm totally content to use the Joy-Cons because, honestly, the Joy-Cons are nice. I do like the Switch 2 Joy-Cons, and I'm totally fine to use those. And I've been fine to use those for, for however long I've used them. I mean, it's been almost 2 months now I've been using them. I like them, right? But I do think the Pro controller is obviously a lot better. I like it a lot better. Alright, so enough of that. We're going to take a quick music break, and then when we come back, I'm going to talk about the games I want to see on Switch 2. I have a whole list of things, Nintendo and non-Nintendo, as far as games I want to see on the Switch 2. And we'll talk about that, and then I guess that's kind of it. I think that's pretty much... I do have actually a couple news articles to talk about as well, but I think that's pretty much all we got to talk about after that. So, see you guys in a moment. And we're back. So hello everyone. Now we're doing the list of all the Switch 2 games, not all the Switch 2 games, all the Switch 2 games that I could think of in a very short amount of time. All the Switch 2 games that I want on, or all the games I want on the Switch 2. I guess they're not Switch 2 games yet, right? Unless Nintendo happens to be working on every single one of these games as we speak, which would be great. I guess I didn't mention in the opening segment, but we just got the other day, actually just yesterday, Nintendo dropped a trailer for Mario Paint on the Switch Online service. And I know people have been talking for a little while about how we should get Mario Paint, and we are now getting it. So that's pretty cool. Mario Paint, I know it's already out on the Super Nintendo Switch Online service. I'll probably check it out. I haven't checked it out yet. I'm not really that interested, but I'll probably check it out at least for a moment because there's just not really a good opportunity to use the mouse controls on the Switch 2 so far. I feel like there's really not a whole lot of good use for it thus far. And that's alright. I mean, I'm sure there'll be things that come out that'll, be good uses for it. But for now, it's not a whole lot. So I am really interested to try out Mario Paint. Even though I'm not particularly interested in the game, I'm really curious about the mouse controls. So, and I know the great thing that they're doing, for people on Switch 1, you can buy a separate mouse. I don't know how much it'll be. I'm a little concerned, but I mean, I'm not gonna buy it. But you can buy a mouse and you can plug it in. I'm not sure if all mouses or all mice work. I know they said compatible ones, but I'm not sure if that's like most of them or if that's like the Nintendo one only. I'm not, I could see compatible mice being either the majority of mouses or mice. Sorry, can't talk. Either the majority of mice or like only the Nintendo one. I'm not really sure what it'll be, but we'll see what happens, I guess. But I guess that is nice, at least, that there's some alternative for people on Switch 1. Obviously, they'd prefer you to be on Switch 2, but it's nice that they're not just, like, completely leaving you in the dust if you're on Switch 1 still. Which makes sense, because there's, like, 155 million people, and on Switch 2, there's, what, like, 7 or 8, probably? So there's, like, a lot of people that haven't jumped ship yet. Obviously, not all of those people on Switch 1 are still active, but, I imagine a large number of them are, so it makes sense. Alright, so let's get into this list. I've categorized them by, like, series, right? So here's all the Mario games I want, all the DK games I want, all the, and it's, honestly, the biggest list is Mario by far. So, and then, of course, at the back, I've got third-party games I want to see. So we'll start with Mario. Here are all the Mario Kart, or all the, not Mario Kart, all the Mario games that I want to see. Not all the Mario games, but again, all the ones that I thought about. Most of the ones on here I thought were semi-realistic, right? I didn't come up with anything crazy. I'm not like, we should get a Splatoon horror game. Like I don't know, like just something like anything that seems kind of logical, right? Anything that seems partially likely, and also there's a few little jokes in here, you know. So the first one I wrote down, I started with 2D Mario. I said Super Mario Brothers Wonder 2. So of course we got Super Mario Brothers Wonder back in 2023, October 20th, I believe, right? I think that's when that came out. It was in October for sure. Um, so that game came out, and Mario Bros. Wonder is a fantastic game. I think it was number 15 for me on my top 50, and I think I'd probably put it there again if it came up again. Maybe I'd even put it higher. We'll see. I'll probably make another top 50 list at some point, so who knows, right? But yeah, you know, Mario Wonder was a fantastic. I think it's probably my favorite 2D Mario game. It's not my favorite 2D platformer. I ended up putting Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, and Kirby's Adventure. I think were both higher than that. Maybe even Rayman Legends. I'm not sure. I think if I was thinking right now, I think I would put Wonder above Rayman Legends. But yeah, I think I could go back and forth depending on when I was making the list. But either way, Wonder 2, I think Wonder 2 is pretty likely. I could see them really going down a path where, you know, so they had all the new Super Mario Brothers games. They did a whole, you know, slew of those things. And then now they go down and they do the Wonder games. And I feel like eventually that'll get old, but I think they can definitely get away with doing a Super Mario Brothers Wonder 2. After that, I think they kind of probably should shift away. I don't think they want to do three of the same thing. But they could. I guess they could, right? But I do imagine the most likely thing, because we're obviously going to get another 2D Mario game this generation. There's absolutely no chance that we don't get a 2D Mario game this generation. I'm pretty convinced. But it'll probably be like 2028, 2029 even. Like, it's going to be later. It's not going to be for a while. And I think when that game comes, there's a chance that it's a totally new thing, but there's also equally a chance that it's a Wonder 2. I think those are the only two possibilities. I don't think they're gonna like suddenly do something crazy. Like I don't think they're gonna be like New Super Mario Brothers 3, which I did write down as a joke. You know, New Super Mario Brothers 3, right? You know, we had New Super Mario Brothers 2. I think the funny thing about a New Super Mario Brothers 3, is that obviously there was New Soup on the DS. Then we had New Super Mario Brothers Wii, which was the second game. But then we had New Super Mario Brothers 2, which was the third game, and then New Super Mario Bros. U, which was the fourth game. So if we had New Super Mario Bros. 3 now on Switch 2, then of course, you know, it would be the fifth game and it'd be number 3. So I don't know. Whatever though. I mean, they could do New Super Mario Bros. U too, right? 2U. I don't know. Um, I think most people, most Nintendo fans, if Nintendo announced a game like that, they would call it New Super Mario Bros. FU. Uh, but you know, anyways, whatever the case. So you know, but I think we will get another 2D Mario game. I don't think it'll be a new soup. I think there's a good chance it'll be a Wonder though. Also, kind of 2D Mario related, I put Super Mario Maker here. Now, I don't know exactly what they would do for Mario Maker. I know some people have said that they're going to do a Switch 2 edition of Mario Maker 2, and they're going to add in a new theme for Mario Brothers Wonder in the extra game styles tab on Mario Maker 2, which I would be okay with that. I would probably buy the upgrade. No, I would definitely buy the, yeah, I would absolutely buy the upgrade, and I would probably be back to playing Mario Maker because I haven't in quite a while, and I think it would just take something like that to get me back into it, but I think they could do something like that. I would be happier, though, if they just made a Mario Maker 3, right? And they put World in there, and they put, like, Land 2 in there, maybe Land 1, right? They put new styles in there as well. I think that would be pretty cool. So, I mean, I could see something like that happening. I could also see something interesting. Obviously, people have floated around the idea for a while now about a 3D Mario Maker, and I think that would be cool, but of course, as some people have said, you know, the problem with a 3D Mario Maker is that, like, you know, there's going to be a lot of people out there trying to make levels, and I think the majority of people will have a very difficult time making a 3D level because a 3D level is a lot harder to make than a 2D level. Obviously, you're speaking in a whole other plane of dimension, right? So it makes it a lot more difficult. I think I would struggle very much to make a 3D level. I mean, I'm already not great at making the 2D levels, so now make a 3D level. I don't think I'd have a great time with that. But I mean, I have a great time, right? I don't think I would do well, but I think I would have a good time just trying, right? But I think the problem we would run into is that less people would make levels. The people that did make levels would spend longer on them and thus make fewer levels. And you would be more likely to find bad levels because lots of people wouldn't know what they were doing. So, I don't know. I mean, I could see some issues arise with a 3D Mario Maker. But I mean, you know what? If anybody is going to have the capabilities to make something that's really intuitive, really easy to understand, it's going to be Nintendo. You know, Nintendo's always about that, streamlining everything, making it all easy. And so I think maybe there is a shot that they could figure something out really easily. And you could make great levels. So who knows? I mean, I have some faith in Nintendo. You know, I think they could do something like that. But I think that I also have, you know, fear that they would just make it and not even realize that it was a problem, right? And so I don't know. I could see it either way. But personally, I would really love another Mario Maker. I would be totally fine to have another 2D one, but I would also be fine to have another 3D one. Either way, doesn't bother me. And I guess I actually just forgot to mention, Super Mario Bros. Wonder, I think, should get a Switch 2 edition, and I think it will as well. I think it should get a Switch 2 edition that up-reses it a little bit, and then they probably should add a little bit of content in there too. Maybe add a little, like, I don't know, add a new world or something, right? So I forgot to mention that for Wonder. But yes, I think that should get a Switch 2 edition as well. All right, moving down the list, we have Mario Kart World DLC. Now, this, of course, isn't a game, but it is DLC. So I think Mario Kart World should get DLC. I don't know if the DLC would be new knockout tours, new tracks, or if it would be, like, new areas in the open world. I think I would prefer if they did a new area in the open world, and then with that, add a couple characters, add a couple other things. I know some people saw there were some Donkey Kong-related characters in the credits or something, and so there was a leak about potentially a Donkey Kong themed island, and with that, some new tracks, some new characters. Maybe they finally add in Diddy Kong, right? Stuff like that. I could definitely see that being a possibility. I think that's actually quite likely. Um, but yeah, that's the problem with Mario Kart World. Like, obviously they're gonna want to do DLC, but I think it might be a little bit difficult to do the DLC because, of course, they put themselves in a position where, you know, it's a much harder to do DLC for something like that because you have to somehow find a way to incorporate it into the open world, unless they just like totally like there's tracks in the game that you can't drive to, which I mean they could do, but that would feel a little bit like antithetical to the whole idea that they've built here. So it'd be a little weird, but I'm not saying they couldn't do it. It would be a little weird. And of course, if they just kind of plop it in on the edge of the map, then the problem is like anybody who doesn't buy the DLC will just randomly come up and it'll be like a roadblock. It'll be like, you can't progress here unless you buy, like, it'd look weird. You know what I mean? Like, it'd look very strange. I don't know. So I'm sure there's a way they could do it. They could do a portal. They could do an island, right? But whatever they do, I think they should do something for sure. I definitely think they should do something. So whatever they end up doing, that's cool. Fine by me. But yes, I do think the game should get some DLC. I know Mario Kart World is struggling a little bit right now. I know the player count not looking so great from all I've heard. A lot of people aren't happy with it. I'm not really thrilled with the online, but I'm also really not a huge online guy, right? So I'm not really too bothered. I actually might play a little bit more Mario Kart World Online. I'm not totally opposed to the idea, so we'll see. But yeah, I think Mario Kart World DLC would be pretty great. All right, I've put on here a new Mario Party game. Obviously we will get a new Mario Party game. Just last week we got the Mario Party Jamboree Switch 2 edition. And, you know, that's cool. I'm happy that that's a thing. You know, I probably won't buy the upgrade pack unless I decide to live stream Jamboree again. We'll see what happens. But, you know, I'm just really like $20 for this Mario Party upgrade pack. I'm not even like a big Mario Party guy. I actually am a little surprised at myself that I even bought Jamboree. Like, I don't even know why I even did that. But I did. So but I did. So, anyways, but yeah, Jamboree. I mean, you know, if they want to do something like that, um, for like superstars, right? Maybe they want to put out an upgrade pack for superstars. I don't think there's any reason for them to do that, but if they want to, they could, right? There's nothing stopping them. I think what makes more sense is just to make a full grounds up new Mario Party. I don't know what they would call it. Maybe they'd go back to the numbering system, Mario Party 15, right? Or I guess this would be like 14, right? But or maybe it'd be 13. No, it'd be 14. But anyways, I doubt they would do that. They'd probably call it like Super Mario Party something, right? I think that's going to be the new strategy. Super Mario Party, we made this game in a month. Whatever it is. Who knows? But yeah, new Mario Party. I don't know if I'd really play it, but I think it's a thing that they should probably do. It'll sell well. It'll do well. It's not gonna take anything away. I think it'll just only be additive, right? Maybe they want to remaster the 3DS Mario parties, right? Seriously though, I mean, I don't know. That's kind of, part of me was like, oh, they should remaster an old Mario Party from the 64 or the GameCube. But honestly, why would they do that? That makes no sense, right? So, I could see them putting out the Mario parties on GameCube though, right? Because they have the 64 Mario parties on the 64 Switch Online service. I could see them putting out the GameCube ones, 4, 5, 6, 7, and that would be pretty cool because currently you can't play them, or you can play them on GameCube, but of course the games are very expensive. So those would be ones that I definitely want to see on the Switch Online service. That would be pretty cool. Next up, I've put it here. I probably should have mentioned it as my first thing, but of course, I want a 3D Mario game. Again, I've been of the opinion for a while that we're not getting a 3D Mario game. If we get one this generation, it'll be 4 or 5 years from now. That's my guess. But there are some people out there, some people with pretty reliable sources, that are saying that, potentially they've split the team on Bananza, that they found out that Bananza wasn't going to work on Switch 1 years and years ago, and that they've had an opportunity over this time period to make another 3D Mario game. And I think that's possible, right? I do think it's possible they've made a 3D Mario game. I just don't think it's likely, personally. I don't think it's likely. I honestly think there isn't a 3D Mario game. But if there is, I definitely won't complain. I'll be very happy to have one. Now, when the game's out, I probably will complain about it because I'm sure I'll have some things I don't like about it. But, I find it weird that they put out a 3D Donkey Kong before they had any word about a Mario. So I don't know. Maybe we got a Mario coming, maybe we don't. But either way, I still want one, right? So if we get one in 4 or 5 years, that's cool. Whatever works. Maybe they want to do. Maybe they're working on the next 3D Mario right now, but they want to put out a shorter one, like a Bowser's Fury kind of situation, 4 or 5 years from now, and then they'll still be ready in 7 years to put out the full grounds up one. That's fine too. Whatever they want to do, I'm here for some 3D Mario. So, because generally, I like 3D Mario, right? Mario 64 is my favorite game of all time. So, generally, I'm quite a fan. So, we'll see what happens. I'm not going to, promise that, I'm not, betting that this is going to happen, but I did put it here. Of course, Odyssey already got its free Switch 2 update, so I don't think it needs anything else. I was thinking, oh, they could do a Switch 2 edition for Odyssey, but there's no reason to do that, right? They've already done the free update. The game already runs great on Switch 1 as it is. It's already got enough content. I don't think there's any reason for them to do that. And they also did a Switch 2 edition for 3D All-Stars, and for Mario 3D World and Bowser's Fury. So I think we're all good on that front. Next up, I've written on here Super Mario Sunshine 2. Every time I like to predict future Nintendo games, I always like to talk about Sunshine 2 and Galaxy 3. I've wrote both of those on here. Those are just cool games that will absolutely never happen. There is literally zero chance that we ever get either of those two games, but if we did, I would be over the moon ecstatic. So, or Mario 65, right? Whatever. But yeah, there's no reason for them to return to those series, and I think it'd be cool if they did, but they obviously never would. I also put on here a potential idea for Super Mario 3D blank, right? So we had Super Mario 3D Land, we had Super Mario 3D World. I would actually be totally down for another 3D Mario game in that style, right? There's a few styles of 3D Mario games. There's the original 64 style, and then Sunshine was kind of like 64, but it's kind of like Galaxy in some other ways. So Sunshine's kind of a hybrid between the 64 and the Galaxy formula. Then, of course, Galaxy 2 is another Galaxy game. 3D Land was a whole new formula. And then Odyssey, I would say, was a whole new formula. It wasn't. Some people say it's like 64 again. Personally, I don't think so. I would split the 3D Mario games into like 64, like Galaxy, like 3D Land, and like Odyssey. That's how I would put them. Oh, and actually, Bowser's Fury is its own thing as well. I think that's a totally different thing as well. So, personally, I think most of the 3D Mario games have felt quite different to each other. But I'm totally down to return to the Galaxy Sunshine format. I'm totally down to return to the 3D Land, 3D World format, and I'm totally down to return to the 64 format. I would personally prefer if we didn't return to the Odyssey format, if we got another change up or something. And of course, I'd be fine to return to the Bowser's Fury format as well. So, we'll see. I don't know which one they'd like to do next. I'm sure, like I said, one of those formats will be returned to. I'm assuming. I'm not thinking they're going to do something totally new. I would guess that it'll probably have at least some elements of some of the old 3D Mario games mixed in with some new modern ideas, right? But I don't know. We'll see what happens, I suppose. The next thing on my list is another Mario plus Rabbids game. Now, of course, Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle came out in August of 2017. I I got it in 2017 at Christmas time. And it was one of two games I had at the time. I had Odyssey and I had Kingdom Battle because I was obviously a huge Mario fan. And I loved Kingdom Battle. Kingdom Battle was a great game. I never beat it, but I got pretty far in. A few years later, I came back. Once again, didn't beat it. And finally, in 2023, I came back again. And that time, I did actually beat it. But yeah, Kingdom Battle was a great game. I tried Sparks of Hope in 2024. Didn't like it quite as much. But, I'm going to go back to that at some point as well, I'm sure. But I guess my point here is I don't think we're going to get another Mario plus Rabbids game because I know Ubisoft were pretty upset with how Mario plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope performed. I know there was a whole thing going around for quite a while that Sparks of Hope hadn't reached their goals for sales and that they weren't, and they didn't specifically say that they weren't going to do another one, but that makes me assume that they're not going to do another one. I guess I could be wrong. I don't really know. But yeah, it seems like they don't really have intention to do another one. But I can't, completely rule out the idea of them doing another one. I'm sure if they were already far enough along in development, then maybe they just continued. But it's already been 3 years. If we're going to get one, it'll probably be, next year. So if we don't get one next year, or maybe 2027, then I think that's probably it. Series is probably over. Which I'm not, heartbroken, but it was kind of a neat little thing there, a neat little partnership with Nintendo and Ubisoft. And I'd be down to have another Mario plus Rabbids game. Personally, I would like if it stayed more closer to Kingdom Battle than Sparks of Hope, but I imagine if we did get another one, it would be more like Sparks of Hope. I also wrote down probably one of the weirdest ideas right here, a Mario Warriors game. So, of course, it's called a Musha, I believe is what it's actually called. It's like Dynasty Warriors, that kind of thing. And, of course, there was Hyrule Warriors, there's Fire Emblem Heroes or whatever. That's not Fire Emblem Heroes. What's it called? Fire Emblem something. There's been a few Nintendo ones. Obviously, a lot of people have talked about Xenoblade Warriors, but I'm not really a Xenoblade fan, at least yet. So I personally didn't put any ideas down for Xenoblade. Yeah, I pretty much just I was thinking, what other neat kind of thing could we do with Mario? And I was like, you know what? What about a Mario Warriors game? I know that's super random and super weird. But I don't know. I think it'd be kind of interesting if you could, run around with Mario and Luigi and them and just kill Goomba after Goomba, Koopa Troopa after Koopa Troopa. I think that would be really interesting. Obviously, you could also put in a character like Donkey Kong, and Donkey Kong would be incredible to play as. Maybe if they didn't want to do a traditional Mario story, you could even team up with Bowser and imagine playing as Bowser and beating up Goombas and Koopas and stuff. I don't know. I mean, I could see some real possibility there. I think it would be pretty interesting. I would definitely play it. I don't know if I would love it, but I would definitely at least be partially interested. I also put on here Paper Mario. Of course, I'm positive we will see another Paper Mario game. I'm actually thinking it'll probably come quite soon. I'm thinking there's a good chance it'll come next year even, or maybe 2027. But yeah, I'm expecting a Paper Mario game very soon. I put here Paper Mario as an RPG. And I guess I should say, actually, I put Paper Mario 64 remake on here as well. They did the Super Mario RPG remake, they did the Thousand Year Door remake, so why not do the one in the middle, right? Let's get Paper Mario on the 64. But I should say that I guess we might not get a Paper Mario game right off if they do the Paper Mario 64 remake. So I'll lump those together, Paper Mario, a new Paper Mario as an actual turn-based RPG similar to Thousand Year Door, or a new Paper Mario, or a Paper Mario 64 remake. Either of those I would like, and I think it's pretty likely. I definitely think they were kind of testing the waters on bringing Paper Mario back to its original roots by remaking Thousand Year Door. And I think there's a pretty good chance they could remake a game like Paper Mario 64. I think the reason why they didn't do it is because it's on Switch Online, right? So it doesn't make quite as much sense, but I think they could definitely still do it, and I think a lot of people would still be interested in that. So we'll see what happens, but I think it would be really cool if you could play Super Mario RPG, Paper Mario, and Thousand Year Door all in modern, with modern mechanics and graphics and stuff. I also put on here a Super Paper Mario port. I don't think we necessarily need much done to the game. Just add options for button controls and stuff, and then keep the motion control support in as well. You can use the motion control, you can use the mouse, whatever it is. But I just think that would be kind of an interesting idea. to put Super Paper Mario on a modern system, because that's a great game. I know a lot of people don't like it, but a lot of people do as well. I think it's one of those things that over time more people have come to appreciate in the wake of modern Paper Mario, right? And also, kind of as a joke, I put a Paper Mario Sticker Star port on here as well. But honestly, I wouldn't really. I think that would actually be kind of an interesting idea. Um, it's not like they could fix up the game. I think the game's screwed no matter what it is. But it's one of those things that one day I would kind of like to play on a live stream or something, and it would make it a lot easier for me if it was on Switch too. So that's why I put it on here. But it's to be fair, I don't actually really want it. On the vein of Mario RPGs as well, I put a new Mario and Luigi game. I know at one point there was some talk about the studio who made Mario and Luigi Brothership acquire, and they're under the same umbrella as From Software. And at one point there was talk about From Software and Acquire and a couple other things getting acquired by Sony. So there was news about Acquire potentially getting acquired, which is pretty funny. But that seems to have not gone through. I don't know if Sony's still in talks about that, or what exactly's gone on, if something's been delayed, or what exactly is happening. But it seems to me like that acquisition is not happening. So that's good, because if Acquire got acquired, then I'm pretty sure we would no longer get Mario and Luigi. Um, so I actually have hope that we could get another Mario and Luigi game. My fear, though, is that a lot of people didn't like Mario and Luigi. Like, critically, it did really bad. I'm not sure if it did well commercially. I don't know. I don't know what the sales were like. I guess I really should probably look into that. But yeah, I'm curious, because personally, I really did like Brothership. It was probably my second favorite game last year, like new games. Then again, there were a couple that I'm sure I would have loved had I played. But you know, I think Echoes of Wisdom was better. But Mario and Luigi Brothership was a great game, and I think it really is a good game, even in the Mario and Luigi series. It's just different, you know. And I spent about 40 hours on it, and the first 35 hours were incredible, like most of the way through. But it was those last 5 hours that slowed everything way down, and the game went from like probably a 9 out of 10 to like a 7.5, 7.5 out of 10, just because of those last 5 hours. Things really, maybe even 10. Things really just went to heck. But overall, I think it was still a pretty solid experience. And I would be totally down for a new Mario and Luigi game, and I'm totally fine with Acquire doing that, right? I'm okay with Acquire being the new Mario and Luigi team. I think they did a pretty good job with Brothership. I thought Brothership, again, it was a great game. I had a great time with Brothership. I'd be totally down for another game from the same crew. But I'm not convinced we're gonna get one. I'm actually kind of thinking it might not happen. I also put on here Mario and Luigi remasters and ports. I think there's actually a really good chance this is happening. I think Acquire potentially, rather than making a new Mario and Luigi game, has actually now been remastering the games, and they're going to put those out on Switch too. That's my guess, and I don't know, maybe I could be wrong. We'll see what happens. I know Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga is on Switch Online, which is great. That's an awesome thing. And I hope the other games come eventually, but obviously we don't have DS Switch Online quite yet. So if we ever do get DS Switch Online, which I think there's a possibility we could, then I could potentially see, Partners in Time and Bowser's Inside Story coming over. But if we don't get those, then I would like to see those games. Obviously, we got Superstar Saga and Bowser's Inside Story on 3DS not long ago. But of course, nobody wants to play them on 3DS, so I think it'd be pretty cool if we got those remastered collections. I could see this happening in a few different ways. Back before Switch 2 was out, I was thinking, like, okay, maybe they put out all 5 games, and they do it for like $100. It's like $20 a pop. That's obviously an expensive release, but at the same time, I mean, you are getting like 5 full-length RPG, or like they're not, I guess, not really full length RPGs. They're like slightly shorter, but 5 full RPGs. I think that's a pretty good deal, actually. But I could also see them, and then I was like, well, maybe they do it for 80, right? If you buy all 5, you get it for 80. And I was still on Switch 1, I was like, I don't think they would put out a game for 80. But now that we've had games like Mario Kart World, I actually think it's very possible that we get all 5 Mario and Luigi games for $80. I think that actually seems pretty reasonable, to be honest. That's like what, $16 a pop. So I think, yeah, I think we could get Superstar Saga, Partners in Time, Bowser's Inside Story, Dream Team, and Paper Jam all for an $80 package. And I would be thrilled with that. I would be absolutely ecstatic, over the moon. I could also see a possibility where we get Superstar Saga, Partners in Time, Bowser's Inside Story as one thing, and that's like $60. And then we get Dream Team and Paper Jam for another pack, and that's like 40. Obviously, the Dream Team and Paper Jam would be, I think, a much worse deal. But I'd still probably buy both collections because I am a Mario and Luigi fan. I want to play the games all through again, and it would be great to do so on Switch because I'm currently looking to do so on the 3DS. Well, I'm going to do Superstar Saga on the Switch too, and then the other games I'm going to have to do on 3DS. And I'm looking to do that pretty soon here. But if I suddenly learned about a Mario and Luigi collection, I would definitely stop what I'm doing and do it there instead because yeah, I think these games would be great to have. But personally, I think it's actually more likely that we don't get the games again until we get DS Switch Online. And when we get DS Switch Online, then we'll get Partners in Time and Bowser's and such story. So we'll see what happens. Whatever happens, happens. I'm sure at some point we'll have the opportunity to play these games on modern platforms. I mean, the 3DS is modern, but like on current platforms, whether it's through Switch Online or it's through a remastered collection. But personally, I'm just putting it on the list because I think it'd be a pretty cool thing. I also put on here, I forgot to mention this back when I was talking about Paper Mario, I put on here the Thousand Year Door Switch 2 edition. So there's a few games I've put on here that I want Switch 2 editions for. The Thousand Year Door, a lot of people freaked out when it was coming out and it was announced that it was at 30 frames a second instead of 60. The original from the GameCube ran at 60. This new version ran at 30 frames per second. A lot of people were very upset about that. There were lots of terrible things being said about it. Personally, I didn't mind. I will say, as somebody who didn't play the original, I really don't care that much if an RPG runs at 30 frames. Like, I don't think that's that big a deal, like a turn-based RPG. If it was an action RPG, then yeah, that'd really suck. But a turn-based RPG at 30 frames, I don't think it's the end of the world. I would rather run at 60 for sure, but I don't think it's like, the game's not terrible. I do think the game's still better on Switch than on GameCube, even considering the fact that it runs worse. Because it looks way better, the mechanics are way better. I mean, it's modernized in a lot of ways. I think it's still far better on Switch. But I know there's some purists out there that are freaking out about how, it's so terrible, such an awful game at 30 frames. I don't know, it's whatever. But I think a Switch 2 edition would be a great thing to get those people that aren't happy with the frame rates to, to really to help out, because then that way Thousand Year Door could run at 60 frames once again, and you could even upscale it to 4K, so it could look better and run better, because it's not a game that I think is, like, the most, it's, like, I don't see a reason why it can't run at 4K 60, with the Switch 2. I mean, I could understand why not on Switch 1, but on Switch 2, I think it should be totally fine. Nothing against the game, it doesn't seem like the kind of game that would struggle with that. I've also put on here, this is kind of a joke, but to be honest, I'd really love to see it. I put on Mario 40th. Or Mario 40, Super Mario Brothers 40. So we had Super Mario Brothers 35 back for the 35th anniversary of Mario, and now we have the 40th anniversary this year for Mario. And I really loved Mario 35. I thought it was a great time, and I would totally love to see more, or see that game again. Unfortunately, they shut it down the next year, so hopefully they can bring it back. I think that'd be really cool. I don't think they will, to be honest. I'm not gonna bet on it, but I think it'd be cool if they did, and I would definitely be down to play Mario 35 again. This time, obviously, it would probably be Mario 40 instead, because now it's the 40th anniversary rather than the 35th one. And the last are actually two things. For Mario still, I put down a new Mario Paint. I know that sounds really weird. It is really weird, but they obviously just announced the Mario Paint on the Switch Online Super Nintendo service, and so now I think it'd be pretty interesting if they put out a new Mario Paint because of the Switch 2 mouse controls. Personally, I don't think I'd even play it, but I do think it would be an interesting idea. Like, I think it could work decently well. I am sure there would be people out there who would be down for something like that. People that are very artsy, very creative and stuff. You could draw stuff on there. I think that'd be pretty cool. So I think a new Mario Paint would be interesting. I'm totally down for something like that. I also, while I was talking about Mario Paint, I just suddenly thought about Mario Maker again. I didn't even mention, for Mario Maker, you could use the mouse controls to make levels, because in Mario Maker 1 on the Wii U, it was obviously pretty nice because you could use the Wii U gamepad to click on things on the Wii U gamepad, and you could make your level that way. And it was a lot easier than it was on Switch, because on Switch, obviously if you are at the TV, you now couldn't do that. And so you basically had to make levels in handheld mode, otherwise it kind of sucked. Like, it wasn't a very good experience making levels on the TV. So making one on the Switch tablet was quite a bit better, but it still wasn't perfect because now the Switch tablet was a little bit smaller. If I just felt a little, it didn't feel quite as good as on the Wii U. So I think they could do something really good here by bringing back a new Mario Maker, and this time you could use the mouse controls. Honestly, I think that would even be enough to warrant a Switch 2 edition of Super Mario Maker 2. They could put out the mouse controls and one new gameplay style, which could be Super Mario World, or Super Mario Wonder, sorry. They could put out Mario Wonder as a game style and the mouse controls, and that would be totally enough, I think, to do a Switch 2 edition. But I just suddenly thought about that. I figured I should mention it again. Um, and the final thing that I put down for Mario was Hotel Mario. What are we doing here? Let's get Hotel Mario on the Switch 2. We get a whole grounds-up remake of the game. No, but seriously, we don't need Hotel Mario. But I did actually think it would be kind of an interesting thing, because part of me wants to play the CDI games, specifically Hotel Mario, and it'd be cool if we could get that game again, because right now it's, like, super expensive. But obviously, we're never going to get that. I'm not, like, that's the most unrealistic prediction I've said yet. All right, let's get some Donkey Kong stuff. There's not a whole lot of Donkey Kong in comparison, but I did put down a few things. Obviously, Donkey Kong Country 6. We definitely need a new Donkey Kong Country. I'm starved for Donkey Kong Country. We haven't had a Donkey Kong Country game in 11 years. What are we doing, Nintendo? What are we doing, Retro Studios? I know Retro Studios, they're busy. They're working on Metroid Prime 4, but hopefully Metroid Prime 4 has been done, and they were just waiting for the Switch 2 to come out so they could put it on there. Hopefully that's what's happened, and hopefully in that time they've started working on a Donkey Kong Country, and it'll be ready in a year or two. That would be great. But personally, I'm thinking we're not getting one for another 4 or 5 years probably. Which sucks, but yeah, it's going to be a long time coming. But I do think we will get another Donkey Kong Country. I guess maybe they could speed it up a little bit because of Bananza and stuff. It seems like they're really trying to do a lot of work here to make Donkey Kong super relevant, which obviously, that's pretty cool. I'm happy that Donkey Kong is really kind of coming back into the mainstream. I really hope that they actually celebrate his 40th anniversary this time around, rather than last time where they just kind of left him in the dust. So yeah, I'm totally down for a new Donkey Kong Country game. I think, Donkey Kong Country is probably my favorite 2D platforming series. No, definitely my favorite 2D platforming series. There's some things I don't like about it, but overall, I'd say it's really nice. It's a really fun time. So I'm definitely down for a new trilogy, because honestly, I think the Retro Studios trilogy, assuming we get a third game, really could rival the. I think it could. I think it's better. I think it could be better than the original trilogy. Right now, I think I'd still give it to the Rare trilogy. I know I prefer Tropical Freeze to 3, but I prefer 3 and 1 to Returns. So yeah, I would still actually put the Rare trilogy above, in my mind, above the modern trilogy. But if there's a new game and it's really good, I think the new trilogy could actually overtake the Rare trilogy, and we could get another. I mean, honestly, the Rare trilogy is always going to be incredible. I would be totally down to have 2 legendary Donkey Kong Country trilogies. All right, next up, I've put an interesting idea, another one that's probably not ever going to happen. Donkey Kong plus Rabbids. So I know that seems a little weird, but we all know that Donkey Kong is obviously Mario's replacement in every sense. Um, but seriously, though, I mean, we thought, like, with Kingdom Battle, we saw the Donkey Kong DLC. And I know a lot of people love the Donkey Kong DLC. I actually never played it, personally. I probably should. But the Donkey Kong DLC was supposedly really good, and I thought about it, I was like, you know what? If they already had an idea for Donkey Kong in this game, they already kind of wanted to step away from the Mario plus Rabbids games, why not kind of take a different take on it? Maybe, like, a last ditch effort. We're like, you know what? We're gonna pull in another Nintendo character. We're gonna try. We're gonna try with Donkey Kong. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I don't think it would work for them. I don't think they would suddenly start selling again. But I'd be totally down for a Donkey Kong plus Rabbids, because it'd be a lot. It'd be very similar to Mario plus Rabbids, but with, like, a slightly different take. So I think that'd be actually quite interesting, and I think it's possible. But again, I'm thinking we're not going to get more Rabbids games. And that's okay. I'm not, like, heartbroken. But if we could get more, that'd be pretty cool. And I'd be totally down for a Donkey Kong. All right, next up, I put up the Donkey Kong Land games. So on Game Boy, they put out Donkey Kong Land 1, 2, and 3 on the Switch Online service. For those who don't know, the games are vaguely similar to the Donkey Kong Country trilogy. on the Super Nintendo. Each of them sort of follow a similar story. The first one is the most unique. It's very different to Donkey Kong Country 1, and I played Land 1 and I liked it. Well, I liked it. It wasn't as good as the regular Donkey Kong games, but it was all right. But Donkey Kong Land 2 and 3 are quite a bit more similar to Donkey Kong Country 2 and 3. But there's slightly different levels and stuff. It's the same story, same characters, but the levels are a bit different. But I'd be totally down for remakes of those games because I think those games' biggest flaws is the screen crunch. You can't see what you're doing, and then also they're a little bit glitchy and very difficult to control because they're very cumbersome. They're on the Game Boy, right? So having remakes of those games, I think, would be quite beneficial, and it's just more Donkey Kong content we could get, right? Just more Donkey Kong platformers we could get. I also put on here Donkey Kong King of Swing. There was King of Swing, and then I think it was Jungle Climber was the one on DS. I would be totally down for more of those things to get those things back, whether they want to remake them, whether they want to make a new Donkey Kong King of Swing, or if they just want to put those games on Switch Online. Either way, I would be happy to get those. I also put on here Donkey Konga. I think Donkey Konga would be a really interesting thing. Obviously, Donkey Konga is a GameCube game, right? So we could see it on Switch Online. The problem is obviously Donkey Konga, you had to use the DK bongos. And I'm not saying it's impossible for them to change up the game and add button controls, but I think the game would lose most of its identity, and it would be very difficult for them to do that. So I don't think they'll do that. I think the only chance we're ever getting Donkey Konga again is if they put out new DK bongos. And I don't think they would do it on Switch Online. I think they would actually just put out Donkey Konga again on Switch 2, like a new game. I think Donkey Konga would be a really interesting idea. I don't think they'll do it again, but it'd be kind of funny. So that's why I put it on here because it'd be funny. I don't think we're actually ever gonna get it, but it would be funny. And they could put out new Donkey Kong bongos, probably wireless ones this time, or maybe USB. But either way, I think that would be really cool. I also put on here Donkey Kong Barrel Blast, a port of the Wii game. Donkey Kong Barrel Blast was a racing game with a lot of great ideas and story mode and stuff. The problem with Donkey Kong Barrel Blast was that it was a victim of the Wii's motion controls and was one of the worst implementations of any game of motion controls on the Wii. So Donkey Kong Barrel Blast suffered greatly just because it was on the Wii. And so had it been on the GameCube, where it was originally planned to be, it probably would have been a lot better. But unfortunately, like I said, it suffered, and we ended up with a game that with a lot of potential that actually kind of sucked. So I think Donkey Kong Barrel Blast is a game. Whether they want to do Barrel Blast again, or they end up doing something like Kirby Air Riders, where they kind of do like a new game based on the old one, whatever they want to do, I think that'd be pretty interesting. You know, just anything to get another racing game other than F-Zero, right? But seriously though, I think that'd be kind of interesting. I don't think it's likely, but it'd be kind of interesting to get a new Donkey Kong Barrel Blast. I put Yoshi on here as well, so that's the end of Donkey Kong. For Yoshi, I put down two things. First of all, a new 2D Yoshi game. Obviously, Good Feel, their most recent project was Princess Peach Showtime, which I have not played, and I'm not sure I ever will. We'll see. But obviously, they made Woolly World back on Wii U. They made Crafted World on Switch, and then of course there was a long gap between Crafted World, which came out in 2019, and Princess Peach Showtime, which came out in 2024. So they had 5 years there, and I don't think they spent the full 5 years on Princess Peach Showtime. I'm assuming they probably got pretty far along on a Yoshi game before they made Princess Peach. Unless they just did development work. They could have done, like, external, like, support and stuff, potentially. But personally, I think there's a pretty good chance they've been working on a Yoshi game for a long time, and they're ready to put out the third Good Feel Yoshi game on Switch 2. I think that's actually quite likely. I know Crafted World and Woolly World did quite well. I know commercially, Crafted World didn't do quite as well. Or sorry, critically it didn't do quite as well, but I think it still did really well commercially. So I think there's a pretty good chance we get another Yoshi 2D platformer. I haven't played Crafted World at all, and I played about 2/3 of Woolly World, and I'm intending to go back to it at some point and restart it probably at this point. So I'm down for another 2D Yoshi. I hope it's more like Woolly World than Crafted World from what I've heard. but we'll see what happens. But I do think that's quite likely, and I just kind of put it here as a possibility. I think it's another great way for them to just kind of like just artificially pump out some extra 2D platformers here and there. And I'm down for 2D platformers. They're one of my favorite series. But I also put on here, because it's been so long and they've had so much time, maybe Good Feel is making a 3D Yoshi game. Of course, in recent years here, we had Kirby get a 3D game after so many 2D games in a row. And we had Donkey Kong get a 3D game after, obviously, Donkey Kong has had a 3D game in the past, but generally he's been mostly 2D his entire existence, besides like the one little outing there on Donkey Kong 64. So we've had two sort of 2D to 3D evolutions recently in platformers for Nintendo. I think Yoshi is a logical next move, because Yoshi has also not ever had a 3D platformer. He's kind of like Kirby, where, on the 64, we had Kirby 64, the Crystal Shards, and we had Yoshi's Story. Both of them were like isometric, so they were like 3D visuals in a 2D plane. So actually the whole world was rendered in 3D, like all the sprites and stuff were 3D models. But it was actually shown in 3D too, but you could only move in a 2D plane. So they both of those, they were 2D platformers, but one of them was kind of 3D. And then obviously nowadays they finally put out the 3D one. So I think Yoshi has a lot of potential as a 3D platformer. I'd be really interested to see a Yoshi 3D platformer. I think I'd definitely want to play it. So I think a Yoshi 3D platformer would be really cool. Another thing I just thought about last time I made this list, and whenever I've thought about games to come to Switch or Switch 2, I've always thought about a Bowser Destruction Simulator, a Bowser 3D platformer where you destroy stuff. And interestingly now, I don't think I need to talk about that anymore, because we've already got it with Donkey Kong, right? So we don't need a Bowser game. But I'd still be down for a Bowser game. I think a Bowser 3D platform would be kind of interesting. I don't really know anything they could do, because originally I was like, oh, they could do a destruction simulator, right? Because there was in Odyssey, right? There was, I mean, I don't think this is a spoiler at this point. You take over Bowser, you smash through stuff at the end of the game, right? I think they could do something like that, where maybe you don't like capture Bowser, you actually just play as him, but the whole game is hedged around him, punching stuff and breaking stuff. So I still think that'd be an interesting idea, but the problem is we just had Donkey Kong Bonanza, so I don't think they'd want to put out that game too soon. And I think if anybody was going to make it, it would probably be the 3D Mario game again, or 3D Mario team again. And so I don't think they're going to do it. But it would be an interesting idea still. I did put Pokemon on this list. I don't have much to say about Pokemon. I'm not a Pokemon guy. I'm not knowledgeable on Pokemon either. But I did put on here that I'd be totally down to see the old Pokemon games remastered. Specifically, probably the first 4 or 5 generations. I know we had Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, but I'd really be interested in playing the old Pokemon games if I didn't have to play them on the Game Boy. So I especially like Red and Blue. Like, I would be totally cool with playing those games again. Or again, I say again, I've never played them before. But I think that'd be a great way for me to get into Pokemon, just playing the older games. Because I'm really not too interested in Scarlet and Violet. I am kind of interested in the Pokemon Legends games, but I'm not really too interested in the main series, the modern games from it. But I'd be interested in trying the old games from it. I feel like I'm talking kind of fast. I need to slow down a little bit. We've got time. So I've also put on here Zelda, right? So of course we've got Zelda. Zelda's, I guess, probably my second favorite video game series. I would say if I had to, if we're counting full franchises, like if Paper Mario and Mario Kart and stuff all count in Mario, then I would say my favorites are probably Mario, Zelda, then probably... Ooh, I don't know, actually. I don't know what my third favorite is. Maybe Animal Crossing? But I also don't play a lot of Animal Crossing anymore, so I could see it possibly being Donkey Kong. I don't know. Who knows? But anyways, my point is, Zelda is definitely my second favorite. That's definitive. And I do have a couple ideas here for Zelda. Less than Mario for sure, because we obviously just get less Zelda releases. There's really a lot less that comes out for Zelda than there is for Mario. So naturally, there's less stuff I'm interested in. But I did put on here a new 3D Zelda. Obviously, we are going to get a new 3D Zelda on Switch 2. I guess, actually, maybe I shouldn't be totally confident. I guess there's a chance that it skips and comes on the next one instead. But I'm pretty sure we'll get a 3D Zelda. I don't know what it'll be. I don't know what it'll do. But I imagine, well, it'll do gangbusters. That's what it'll do. But otherwise, I'm not really sure what the ideas for it will be. I don't know. I mean, who knows, really? It could be. I imagine it'll probably be open world, like Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, but it'll be in a different world. Like, it won't be the same Hyrule again. That's my guess. Personally, I would love if they went back to their roots, or not necessarily the roots, right? But like to the earlier 3D games. I'd even be down for Skyward Sword. Like, Skyward Sword's kind of my. Honestly, it's probably my favorite Zelda game. I haven't really beat a whole lot of them, but from what I've played of all of them, not all of them, of many of them, Skyward Sword is my favorite. So I would be totally down for something along those lines once again. But I wouldn't be too heartbroken if we got another Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom. I understand that that is the series evolution, and maybe I'm just starting to accept that from here on out, I'm going to be more interested in the 2D Zelda games. But you know what? Honestly, I think if another 3D Zelda game came out, I think I would actually see it through this time. Because I'm just so much more into the video games and so much more into the zeitgeist nowadays. I think I would probably actually push through a open world Zelda game this time. Because when Breath of the Wild, I didn't play Breath of the Wild when it came out because I didn't get a Switch until the end of the year. So I got my Switch end of 2017. Sorry, I'm like stumbling over my words here. And I didn't beat Breath of the Wild until last year, in 2024. I played it over and over and over again. Every time I would get frustrated and I'd be like, this game sucks. Like, it wasn't like it was hard. I just, like, really just wasn't interested. I would be walking around, I'm like, this is boring. Like, what am I doing here? This is awful. And so eventually I finally did gain some appreciation for it, enough to actually finish the game last year in 2024. And it's a good game. It's on my top 50. But it's not like number one like it is for seemingly most people. So it's not in my top 10. I think it was like 34 or something. Like, it's all right. It's a good game, you know. It did take me 7 years to understand that it was at all decent. I still don't think it's amazing, but it's all right. It's fine, you know. It's an all right game. And Tears of the Kingdom, I haven't got around to beating yet either. That one, or I guess I did beat Breath of the Wild. I still haven't beat Tears of the Kingdom. I had a similar story with Tears of the Kingdom where I didn't get it when it came out. It came out in May 2023, and I was like, who cares, right? Because at that point, I didn't like Breath of the Wild. It was also a point in time where I was basically just buying old games. I think specifically I was focusing on the NES collection at that time, so I was really like not interested in anything modern. Nowadays, I like to buy retro games, but I also like to buy modern games. And I think this year so far, I've been mostly buying modern games because the Switch 2's come out, right? So I've been really been thinking about that, saving for that, all that stuff. But you know, I go back and forth a little bit, but I think generally these days I buy a little bit of each, right? I think that's a good way to do it. But there, that 2023, like most of the year was a time where I was basically only buying like ancient history. You know, it was like ancient Roman stuff. No, but seriously, I was buying like, you know, pretty much Wii and older at that point. You know, I wasn't buying anything recent. So nowadays that's kind of changed, but yeah, that's why I didn't beat Tears of the Kingdom. And I bought it in September of 2023, and I thought it was fine at first. You know, I played quite a bit of it, but eventually I got away from it again. I came back a little later, got away from it again and again and again and again, and finally, I started live streaming it on Switch 2, and so now I'm thinking of actually, might actually get through it this time. We'll see. I'm only 2 live streams in, so tune in to the live streams on the YouTube channel to see stuff like that. So, but anyways, so that's kind of where I'm at in 3D Zelda. So, but I think if another 3D Zelda game came out, I think I would actually probably beat it in its launch year finally. So we'll see. Uh, we'll see what happens. So I also put on here a 2D game from Grezzo, specifically from Grezzo, because I feel like at this point it makes the most sense for Grezzo to make the 2D games and the Zelda team to make the 3D games. Obviously, I know the Zelda team had a lot of involvement in the 2D and in Echoes of Wisdom specifically, but Grezzo was mainly the team behind it, right? The weird thing about Grezzo is like they also make a lot of the Zelda remakes. So I think it's pretty difficult probably to say like what's Grezzo doing right now? Are they working on some sort of remake or are they working on a new 2D game? I don't know. I know Echoes of Wisdom sold pretty well, so I think it's possible they're making a new 2D game, but then I'd be worried that we wouldn't get a whole lot of Zelda remakes. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. But I'm definitely down for a new 2D game. I imagine we'll get a 2D game late in the generation. I think it's just going to be one of those things. 2D Zelda is just going to be an end of generation kind of game, and I think that's fine. I'm totally cool with having something like that towards the end of the generation. Echoes of Wisdom was a great game. I think I put it like 11th or something. I don't think I'd put it quite that high if I made the list again. I think I'd probably put it in the 20 area. But it is a fantastic game. It's one of my favorite Zelda games. Probably my second favorite. Echoes of Wisdom was great. A lot better than I expected it to be. I expected it to be pretty cool. It ended up being amazing, phenomenal. Even I'd say it was. I want to say it was a masterpiece. I would say it was phenomenal. I don't think it's quite a masterpiece, but it was phenomenal for sure. So that's kind of where I stand on Echoes of Wisdom. So I'm down for another 2D game. I think they should probably ditch the Zelda mechanic. I loved the Zelda mechanic. I think playing as Zelda was cool. But I don't think they should like make the 2D games always Zelda based, right? Like I think you should probably go back to Link. I think that would make the most sense for the series. I think, it would be a little I think it would take away from Echoes of Wisdom if that was a new standard thing in the 2D games. Um, so I think it would make the most sense if they went back to Link and left that gimmick for Echoes of Wisdom, unless they make a direct sequel to Echoes of Wisdom. If they want to make a direct sequel to Echoes of Wisdom, I'm actually okay with that. That'd be pretty cool. But if they want to do a totally new thing with a totally new map, then I think they should go back to Link. Not that I didn't like Zelda. I liked playing as Zelda. That was pretty cool. I'd be down to do it again eventually, but I don't think it should be the next game, right? I think they should do it later on. So that's kind of where I stand on that. I also put on here the Oracle games remade, so Oracle of Seasons, Oracle of Ages. I know there's some pretty good evidence that Grezzo at one point was working on Oracle of Ages and Oracle of Seasons because some of the Echoes of Wisdom bosses are like very similar to the Oracle games. So people were speculating that they were at some point working on the remakes for Oracle of Seasons and Ages, which would make sense because obviously Grezzo they remade Link's Awakening in 2019. It would make sense that they would be remaking Oracle of Ages and Oracle of Seasons again as well. So the fact that they ended up in Echoes of Wisdom could say a few things. Either they were still working on those remakes and they just had the stuff left over and they figured they'd use it twice, or they scrapped the remakes and decided the bosses would still just work fine in Echoes of Wisdom. Personally, I really hope they didn't scrap the remakes. I hope they just, were like, hey, this isn't done yet, but we can use it a couple times. That'd be cool. Um, I'd be really down for Oracle games remade. I'm gonna play the Oracle games at some point pretty soon, I think. But not right away. But at some point, I think I'll play them. So if they come to Switch 2 instead, I'll definitely play them there instead. Instead of on Switch Online. So we'll see what happens. But I'm down for some Oracle remakes. Still on the topic of 2D Zelda, I put A Link Between Worlds as a remaster. Obviously, that was the 3DS game. A lot of people say it's one of the best 2D Zeldas, but I don't really want to play it on the 3DS. I probably will at some point, but I'm not really looking to anytime soon, so I would love if they put that game on the Switch 2 instead. I think all it really needs is a light remaster, some touch-ups in the graphics, and you're pretty much good. I don't think you really need to do a whole lot of work to it. So I think it's a pretty solid game that they could remake. It's kind of like Illusion Mansion 2, right? It's that kind of remaster. They can do something like that and pretty easily get it out. Or like a Donkey Kong Country Returns, I think it's really something that we could see. I think it's possible. So I don't know. It seems like more of an end of generation thing though. So maybe they want to save it for for the end of this next generation. Um, I don't know, but it doesn't really seem like the kind of game we're going to get anytime soon, but I think it's the kind of game that we could get later on. I put on here an Ocarina of Time remake. I don't think it's happening, but I know a lot of people would be thrilled to hear about an Ocarina of Time remake, and I would personally be pretty happy too. So I'm down for an Ocarina of Time remake, or just a remaster of the 3DS version, because really my biggest problem with the 3DS version, I just don't want to play the 3DS. So, I know the 3DS version is better in a lot of ways, but again, I just don't want to play it on 3DS. I would just rather play it on Switch Online, and I tried to do that, and I got stuck in the water temple like everybody does, and I don't know. Ocarina of Time seems like a great game. I was actually like, man, this game's gonna be my top 10, but I just got so stuck on it, and I just kind of got away from it, and eventually I tried to come back, and it had been too long, and I didn't know what I was doing, so I just was like, you know what, fine. I'll just quit. At some point, I'll come back. So that I feel like that's just going to keep happening to me. So it would be nice if we get some sort of flashy new remake that might actually promote me to beat it. All right, I put on here Twilight Princess. Either the HD version. Obviously, I don't think they're going to do the HD version because they didn't do it for Wind Waker. If we got the HD version, I would be thrilled. If we didn't get the HD version and we got it on Switch Online, I would be fine with that too. And I think that's the most likely scenario. I think we're probably going to get Twilight Princess on Switch Online, and that's totally cool. I'm down. Like, let's do it. Any way for me to play that game not on the Wii, because I really tried to play that game on the Wii, didn't like it on Wii. I want to play the GameCube or the Wii U version, so if they want to give me the GameCube version on Switch Online, I'd be happy to do that. I put an idea on here. It's not something that I think is possible, but it was kind of an interesting idea. I put a top-down Zelda turn-based RPG, like a 2D one, pixel art even. I don't think Nintendo would ever do this, but I always feel like Zelda would be a perfect game to have its own like turn-based RPG. Just because the theming of the world and stuff, I think lend themselves really well. Obviously, it's fantasy. It could be a lot like a Final Fantasy or a Dragon Quest or something like that. And I just really like to see Nintendo make more turn-based RPGs. So I'm totally down for something like that. I don't think it's likely, but I think it's possible. And I don't know, they could even reuse a map from a 2D Zelda game and just, put in some random encounters and not random encounters, but like enemies that you fight in a turn-based system instead. Something like that. I think that's totally cool. It would actually feel, I think, a lot like a 2D Zelda, especially if you did dungeons and stuff in the same way. I think, yeah, really, I think you could do like puzzles and stuff, kind of like the Mario and Luigi games, and I think you could make a 2D Zelda game as an RPG, and it would still feel very similar, I think. So, I think some people might be mad about it because it would kind of like replace a 2D Zelda game. So, I would hope that it would be from a different team and they could do like, that and a 2D Zelda game. But I think it's an interesting idea, at least to try for one Zelda game. And of course, the CDI games. We need the CDI games. We need like Link and the Faces of Evil and all, and the other two, Winds of Gamelon. I don't remember the name of the other one, but yeah, we need those three Zelda games. What are we doing? Like, we're missing Zelda games. How are we gonna? Whatever are we gonna do if we can't play these amazing games? So, I'd be totally down to get the CDI games. I'd play them. I would definitely play them. I'd pay $100 for the three Zelda CDI games, probably. I probably would. I probably would. So let's get them, Nintendo. It's free money. Free money, man. I don't know what the licenses are on those. It might be difficult to get them from Philips. I don't really know. But I mean, it's obviously not ever going to happen, but I just think it'd be an interesting idea. All right, next up we have Kirby. I don't have much here for Kirby, but I do like Kirby. I've played the old games, not really the new ones. I did put on here another 3D Kirby, right? We had Kirby in the Forgotten Land. I know Kirby in the Forgotten Land did really well commercially and critically, so I think there's a really good chance that we are gonna get another 3D Kirby game. Personally, I think it would make more sense if they did another couple 2D ones before they did a 3D one again. I don't think they should move Kirby away from 2D. But I think having another 3D game would make sense. Obviously, now they're working on the Switch 2 edition for Kirby and the Forgotten Land, so I don't think they're going to do it anytime soon. But I could definitely see a situation in which we do get that eventually. I want a port of Kirby's Epic Yarn. I don't necessarily need ports of most Kirby games, but I think Epic Yarn would be a good one because it's one that still looks good today. It's something Goodfeel could work on. And also, it was one of the more, well remembered, well liked Kirby games. I also put on here Kirby and the Rainbow Curse and Canvas Curse. I think Rainbow Curse was the Wii U one and Rainbow Curse was the 3DS one, but I think those two games would be pretty cool. Or if they want to make a new one, in a similar idea, um, to those games, or if they just want to put the two out together in their own little pack. Either way, I'd like to play those games. So those are the Kirby games I'd like to see ported. And then, of course, I put on here the original Kirby Air Ride on the GameCube Switch Online would be pretty cool as well. Because, I want to play Kirby Air Riders, but it'd be pretty cool as well after I get to play that game to be like, okay, well, here's where the original Kirby Air Ride started. Because I haven't played Kirby Air Ride, so I think it'd be cool after playing Air Riders to then be able to go back and see, oh, look, well, this is where Kirby Air Ride, or this is where, this is where the idea came from. Because obviously, I'm kind of familiar with Kirby Air Rider, or Kirby Air Ride on GameCube, but I haven't played it, so that'd be cool to play. For Pikmin, I put three things for Pikmin. I said a Pikmin 4 Switch 2 edition. It's Pikmin 4. I think that's a pretty likely one to get a Switch 2 edition. You know, just anything else to get a Switch 2 edition that I've been thinking of. I think Pikmin 4 is a game that could really benefit from it. I don't think it's one that necessarily needs it. Like, I don't think there's anything wrong with Pikmin 4 specifically. And I don't think it's one that needs to be an $80 Switch 2 edition. I think it could be a 70. You know, they just upscale it a little bit, up the frame rate a little bit. But if they want to add some new stuff, oh, wait, you know what? Actually, never mind. Disregard. How about this? We get a new Pikmin 5, because I wrote down Pikmin 5 as well. We get a new Pikmin 5 game with mouse controls, because I think mouse controls are, like, Pikmin is built for mouse controls. So, Pikmin 5 with mouse controls, and motion controls is another alternative. But then we add in the Switch 2 edition for Pikmin 4, we add in mouse controls to Pikmin 4. Maybe that's why they're waiting to put out a Pikmin 4 Switch 2 edition. I don't know. But I think that'd be pretty cool. And I've also put on here Hey Pikmin. Hey Pikmin, I've heard awful things about the game. I've heard it's a terrible game, but I still want to play it. So I think it'd be cool if Hey Pikmin was available to play somehow, some way on the Switch 2, whether it's, you know, if we at some point get Switch 2 3DS games. I imagine if we did get the 3DS library, it wouldn't be till the next console at least. But I don't know. I think it's possible. And so, Hey Pikmin, if they want to do that, or if they just want to port it over or something, I would actually kind of want to play it. I know it's not good, but I want to play it anyways because, I don't know, I'm stupid. I don't know. I just think it'd be kind of cool. I think my main reason for wanting Hey Pikmin is probably because the whole rest of the series is playable on Switch 2, so even if it's not a good game, I just think it'd be cool to have the whole series playable. Alright, my next series that I've written down here, I have Animal Crossing. Obviously, Animal Crossing, I mentioned earlier, maybe my third favorite series. At one point, it was definitely second. At one point, it was definitely Mario and then Animal Crossing for me personally. But I think nowadays, Zelda's definitely gone up there into second. And I think Animal Crossing's potentially fallen down to fourth. But either way, you know, it's definitely still one of my favorite series. I love especially the older games, and that's why one of my ideas for Animal Crossing was a remaster of one of the old games. Personally, if I had to pick a game to be remastered, oh, actually, that's a tough decision. I would say either the original or City Folk. I would like remastered. I personally prefer City Folk a little bit. It's close though. I actually like both those games a lot. But I would be totally fine with either of those being remastered. I would actually be pretty disappointed if Wild World was remastered, because if Wild World's remastered, why not just City Folk? Because City Folk's literally the same thing with a few more features. So I think you ought to probably remaster City Folk would be my thought. Maybe GameCube as well. They could remaster, but or they could port over a new Leaf on 3DS. That would be pretty cool as well. So I'd be down for any old games coming back, but I don't really see much opportunity for old Animal Crossing games to come back. I don't think that's really very likely. So I'm assuming it'll just be a new game. I of course did also put new game here for Animal Crossing. We'll get a new game, I'm assuming. I also put a New Horizons Switch 2 edition. I just put the old game. I put Animal Crossing on GameCube, right? So you have Animal Crossing GameCube on the Switch Online service would be pretty cool. And of course, the greatest Animal Crossing game of all time needs a sequel. Amiibo Festival 2. Anybody? 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 But seriously though, yeah, the new game I think is obviously the only thing of these that's actually going to happen. Well, actually, I think Animal Crossing could happen on Switch Online. That could be possible. But I think a new game is obviously going to happen. Unlike most people, I don't think it'll happen next year. Or obviously, some people were even convinced it was going to happen this year. Obviously, it's not happening this year. I don't think it's going to happen next year either. I'm thinking it's like a 2027 thing, maybe even a 2028 thing. I don't think it's very soon. I think it's going to be a little while still. And that's all right. I'm not really I won't be that upset, I don't think. I'm sure by the time we finally get one, I'd be itching for one, but I'm not, like, gonna be too devastated if we have to wait a few more years, so that's kind of where I'm at. But anyway, so I guess that's enough for Animal Crossing. I did put on here Metroid. Metroid is like recently a series I've started to get into a little bit. I'd still say I'm not super into it. I'm not gonna buy Metroid Prime 4 unless we suddenly find out about Metroid Prime 2 and 3 being remastered. I of course put those on here, so Metroid Prime 2, 3, and I also put Hunters. I would like to see ported or remastered or remade in some way. I won't be heartbroken if we don't get Hunters, but we definitely need 2 and 3. Absolutely. I guess maybe they could just put 2 on this GameCube service, but I'd rather they just remade it. And then, of course, 3 they'd have to port over a remake or something. So we need those games. I also said we needed a new 2D Metroid, so of course we had Metroid Dread was the last one. We need a new one. It's been, what, 4 years now. I imagine we will get a new one, probably from Mercury Steam. The problem is, obviously, they're probably going to wait until after Metroid Prime 4, so we had Metroid Prime 4. They're probably going to wait until at least next year, maybe 2 years from now, until we get a 2D Metroid again, but I imagine we will get one. And I also said Metroid Samus Returns on 3DS. We get a port of that. That would be really nice because that's the only 2D Metroid that you can't play on the Switch, which is pretty crazy. You can play the whole series on the Switch besides Metroid Samus Returns, and I really don't want to have to play that game on a 3DS, so I would really love to be able to play that on Switch too. That'd be nice. All right, and now we just have like other for Nintendo. I just put a few things here, not a ton. I put a new Smash Brothers game would be pretty nice this generation, but I don't think we're getting one, to be honest. I'm actually thinking Smash Brothers is probably going to completely jump the Switch 2, and it's probably going to come out on the next console instead. But if we do get one, I imagine it will not be for 3 or 4 years, probably, is my guess. I also put on here a Super Nintendo World Championship, right? We got NES World Championship last year. I'm thinking we could get the same thing with Super Nintendo now. So the Super Nintendo, it's an anniversary for the Super Nintendo. I guess. I guess actually technically this year in Japan, right? So I guess they're probably not going to do it this year then, but I could see them doing it a few years from now. But they might also just wait until the end of the generation. SNES World Championship seems like something that could show up right at the end of the Switch 2's life. So who knows? But I think it's possible. I'm down for some more 99 style games. We had Tetris 99, Pac-Man 99, F-Zero 99, and of course there was Mario 35 was a similar idea. I already mentioned Mario 40, but I'm down for some more stuff kind of like that. Maybe we get a Zelda 35 for Zelda's 35th anniversary. Maybe we get a Donkey Kong Country, whatever. I mean, maybe we get, I don't know, Donkey Kong Country, 35th in a few years. Maybe we get just Donkey Kong 40th, or sorry, 45th. Donkey Kong 45th we could get next year. That'd be pretty cool. They could do just like Mario, where you have to scale up the levels, and when you kill an enemy with a hammer or something, it spawns in your level. That'd be really cool. So I think that would be something like that would be cool. Any other stuff they want to do, if they want to do like an Ice Climber anniversary thing, if they want to do a not an anniversary thing per se, but maybe like a 99 game. If they want to do a Kid Icarus 99 game, whatever they want to do, that would be pretty cool. So that's kind of where I'm at. A new IP. I think just in general, we need a new IP on Switch 2. I think that would be pretty cool. I'm not counting Welcome Tour. That's not it's not a thing. But yeah, I think just a new Nintendo IP sometime in the next couple of years would be cool. I feel like it's a good thing to have just some new IP every generation. Just new IPs, I think, would always be great. I know Nintendo's not necessarily a company that needs new IPs. They have plenty to work with. But I think why not get another one in there, right? And I put a new ARMS game, just out of the blue. I kind of thought of it. I was like, we get a new ARMS game. Maybe they could even call it Legs, right? Instead of ARMS, we got Legs. Of course, I'm not like an ARMS fan. I never even played ARMS. But I think ARMS does have some potential if, and only if, it's got a totally new idea for the next one. I don't think they can just put out new maps and stuff and expect it to do well. I think it actually needs to be totally different. Maybe Legs. Maybe Legs is what we need. But I just kind of put it on here sort of as a joke, but also it would be kind of interesting. So that's all the Nintendo games that I could come up with in 10 minutes that I wanted on Switch 2. But I figure I can also talk a little bit about a few third-party things. So I didn't put a whole lot here. I'll run down the list here. We are getting close to the end here, though, so we'll see what happens. But I figured I can run down the list of these games. Most of these are just things that I'm personally interested. There's lots of other things that I think should come over just because other people are interested, but these are really the ones that I specifically want. It is my wish list, after all. So for third-party games, I put Persona 4 Revival. So we just got that announced at the Summer Games Fest back in June, and of course, for those who don't know, I played Persona 3 Reload, and I loved it. and I'm now a Persona fan. So I totally want Persona 4 Revival on Switch 2. If it's coming there on day one, I'll buy it there. And if not, I guess I'll just have to buy it on PlayStation instead, which is fine. I'll buy it there. But I'd prefer to have it on Switch 2 because obviously I'm a Nintendo guy. I also put on here Persona 6 when that inevitably comes out. I'm assuming probably during the Switch 2 generation. I know it could be a few more years, but it'll probably still be during this generation. Maybe we can get Persona 6 on the Switch 2. That would be pretty cool. I put Metaphor Refantazio. That's also an Atlas game. It's sort of similar to Persona, sort of similar to SMT. But though that was one of the Game of the Year nominees last year, and I know I have heard some people speculating that it could be coming soon. Of course, Persona 3 Reload could also be coming soon. I didn't really put that one on the list, though, because I've already played that on PlayStation, but that'd be pretty cool if we did get one of those and other people could play it on Switch too. I think that would be pretty smart. Maybe even Persona 5 Royal could come over to Switch too. I know it's maybe a little bit late to the party now, but I know it's on Switch 1. I think having a Switch 2 version of it, not like a Switch 2 edition game, but like a totally different version of it, I think would make a lot of sense. I did also put the next Metaphor game, because I'm assuming we're going to get more Metaphor games. I don't think that was a one-off thing. I'm guessing there'll be Metaphor or something else in a few, I say a few years, it could be 4 or 5. But I'm guessing we'll get another one of those, and I hope that that also comes to Switch too. So that's all the Atlas games I wrote down. Oh no, actually I didn't. I put SMT as well. Shin Megami Tensei. If there's any more of those that come out, maybe they come on Switch too. I'm not like too worried about it though. I put Final Fantasy all in like a chunk. So there's the Final Fantasy IX remake. If that ends up happening, I know there's a lot of speculation right now around that kind of thing. If we get a Final Fantasy IX remake, I think that should probably come to Switch too. That would be pretty cool. If we get Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, right? We're getting a remake on Switch 2 this year. I think it's in October. That's supposed to be coming out. So let's get Rebirth as well. I'm sure Rebirth probably will come, but let's get it sooner rather than later, right? Let's get it on the go as soon as possible. I also put Final Fantasy whatever Part 3. So of course it's a trilogy. They did remake, they did Rebirth. Now they're gonna work on the next one. Rebirth just came out last year. They're at the beginning of the year, so I'm guessing we're not gonna get the next Final Fantasy VII part for a few years. Probably 2028, maybe. Maybe 2027. We'll see. 2029 even maybe. But when that comes out, I think that'd be nice if that came to Switch 2 as well. And then I also just kind of lumped like modern Final Fantasy on here. So that's really kind of starting with like 13, right? 13, 15, 16. I guess they can put 14 out, right? That's the MMO. But yeah, those kinds of games would be cool on Switch too, because I'd like to play through the whole Final Fantasy series. Besides like 11 and 14, those ones I can't really. I can play 14. I can't play 11. I can play 14, but I'm not really too interested. It's a totally different thing. And of course, I also put on here Final Fantasy 17, because obviously that's going to happen, I would assume, in the next couple of years. We'll get a Final Fantasy 17, and I think that would be a really cool thing to have on Switch 2 when it comes out. I'm not saying it will happen on Switch 2, who knows, but it would be cool if it did. Alright, I put a new Crash Bandicoot game. Crash Bandicoot, I'm guessing he's probably done. I know he's kind of in a weird spot right now. He's wrapped up with Activision Blizzard, and obviously now he's in the Microsoft wheelhouse, and they really don't seem too interested in doing anything with him. In fact, I don't think Toys for Bob exists anymore. I could be wrong on that. I don't think they're around anymore. So it's not impossible that we get a new Crash game years and years from now, but at the very least, I don't think we're going to get one anytime soon. But maybe if they want to surprise us, I would be thrilled to have a Crash Bandicoot game anywhere, but Switch 2 would be even better because personally, I'm a huge fan of Crash 1 through 4. If you watched my top 50 video, all of them ranked on the list. Crash 1 was pretty low down there, it was in the 30s or something, but especially like Crash 4, I think was number 9 or 10 or something. It was up there. I don't know if it was maybe it was an 11 or something like that. 10, I think. It was 10. I'm pretty sure it was 10. It was really high up there though. They did very well on my list. All right, Clair Obscur, Expedition 33. Obviously, that's a game that's really rocked everybody's world this year. Everyone's talking about it. It's blown up the internet. And I really want to play Clair Obscur, and I will do so on PS5. But I'm just waiting right now to see if it possibly, maybe, could come to Switch 2 before I go and buy it on PS5. So I don't know. I don't know how much longer I can wait. So I want to play it before the end of next year. I'm fine waiting till next year, but I don't want to like be so late to the party, right? Like I want to play it either this year or next year. So as soon as it comes out on Switch 2, that's when I'm playing it. If it doesn't by the end of like next year, then I'll probably just cave and buy it on PS5. But I'm really hoping Clair Obscur can come over to Switch too. I know there's a lot of rumors around it right now. Hopefully, there's a Nintendo Direct in 2 days, and we hear about lots of this stuff on this list, and Clair Obscur is one of the things. But we'll see what happens. I don't really know. I put on well I have later on I have Xbox games just in general. But I separated out Halo the Master Chief Collection and Halo Infinite. I would really love to be able to play through the Halo series anywhere but on the Xbox. So if they want to put out the Master Chief Collection, I know there's a lot of rumors about that game coming to PS5, and so maybe it could also come to Switch too. That would be pretty cool. I would be totally down for Halo to come over to a Nintendo console so I could play it, because I'm really not terribly interested to play it through on Xbox. I just really don't love playing the Xbox, so I don't know. I'd prefer to have it on Switch too, but I might at some point just play it on the Xbox consoles if it comes there. If it comes to PS5 and not Switch 2, I might also play it there. But I just think it'd be a really cool thing to have on Switch 2. It's not like gonna be absolutely like devastated if it doesn't come though. I also put the modern Doom trilogy. So, of course, Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal. I almost said Doom Infinite. Doom Eternal. They're both on Switch 1. But I know that specifically Doom Eternal isn't very good on Switch 1. And I'm not suggesting they do Switch 2 editions. I think it would just make more sense if they put out the games again on the Switch 2. So whether they want to do, like, totally standalone releases of Doom 2016, Doom Eternal, and Doom the Dark Ages, right? That just came out this year. Or if they want to do a full like a pack of the three of them on Switch 2, or if they want to put out Doom 2016 and Eternal as one thing, and then Doom the Dark Ages as a separate thing. However they want to do it, I think it'd be pretty cool if we could get the Doom games, the modern Doom games, with good versions on the Switch 2. Because I would totally be down to play through those games. I do actually own Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal on Xbox, and I have all of the old, not all of the old, but the main old Doom games. So that's Doom 1, Doom 2, Doom 3, and Doom 64. I have those games on Steam. So I'm going to play through those games on Steam. If the modern Doom games come out on Switch 2 before I get to them on Xbox, I'd be happy to play them on Switch 2 instead. So that's where I'm at on that. So again, if they don't come over, I'm not going to be devastated, but I think that would be a pretty cool thing to see over on Switch 2. And of course, that's also kind of in the Xbox wheelhouse now, considering they own Bethesda, and if Bethesda owns it, it's like a whole thing, right? Anyways, but you know what I mean. So that'd be pretty cool. This is one of the big ones that I really, really want, Yakuza, right? So I've been playing Yakuza 0 Director's Cut. I kind of paused a little bit to play Bananza because I'm really loving Bananza, but Yakuza 0 Director's Cut was one of the launch titles on Switch 2, and that really kind of took me by surprise. I did not expect to see Sega coming out strong on Switch 2 with Yakuza, but they did, and so I'd be really thrilled if they kept going with the series, right? I imagine the intention, because they started with the first one chronologically, right? If they were going to start with like the most popular ones, they would probably put out a more recent one, or they would put out like Kiwami or something like that. But the fact that they started with the first one chronologically leads me to believe that they might keep going with the series, and they might next put out the Kiwami 1 and 2 collection from the PlayStation, and they might put out Yakuza Collection from PS4. Maybe they'll put out, some of the modern ones, the Like a Dragon games, whatever it is. I would be thrilled to have more Yakuza games. Hopefully, they put them all out on Switch 2, and they put them out all in order. That would be great. So I don't know if they do that, but that'd be cool if they did. I'd probably play the whole series unless I got caught up somewhere. I would imagine I would try to play through the whole series if I was still enjoying it at that point. Because yeah, I'm totally down to play some Yakuza. I've really been liking what I've played so far of Yakuza 0, so it's a cool series. It's a cool series. So I would really love to see more Yakuza games. And I will say, Sega specifically, I'm really impressed with their support on Switch 2. Obviously, I talked about all those Atlas games earlier, and I'd really love if those were to come over. But the Switch 2 has only been out for 2 months, and I feel like Sega's put out more games than Nintendo. They had Yakuza 0 Director's Cut, they had Raidu Remastered, and they had the Sonic X Shadow Generations. So yeah, Sega's done a lot of stuff on Switch 2, and obviously, hopefully, they're going to continue with Yakuza, and they're going to keep supporting the Switch 2 with Atlas games, with all the Persona games. So that would be really cool. I'd be really thrilled if Sega put all the Persona games and all the Yakuza games or maybe not all the Persona games, but some of the Persona games and all of the Yakuza games on the Switch too. That would be great. And also, while we're on the topic of Sega, I actually didn't write this down, but I just thought about it. I'd like to get a couple more Sonic games from recent years. So there's like Sonic Superstars, Sonic Frontiers. Those are the ones I can think of right now. There's probably some other things I'm not thinking of. Those are two games in particular that I know didn't run perfectly on Switch 1. I don't think they were like, I don't think it was awful, but it would be nice if we could just, why not port them over? I know Sega's not been wanting to do Switch 2 editions for things. That's fine. I know some people get upset when companies don't do Switch 2 editions for stuff. Honestly, I'm not that bothered. It is what it is. It's like, really, it's fine. If they just want to put the game out twice, that's fine. But as long as the games come over, that's really what's important for me. So specifically Frontiers and Superstars, I would like to play on there. So it'd be cool if Sega would put those out on Switch 2. If not, I'll probably buy the Switch 1 versions eventually and play them there. But I do kind of want to play some of the more modern Sonic games, so if they want to put them out for me there, that would be fantastic. And I actually just thought about another one as well, because I was thinking about it when I was thinking about Sega. That game is Dragon Quest III, right? So we had Dragon Quest III, it came out on Switch 1, and now we have Dragon Quest 1 and 2 that are coming out on Switch 2. So why not put Dragon Quest 3 out on Switch 2 as well? Have another, put it out again, this time on Switch 2, and that way, because I know Dragon Quest 3, it doesn't have a capped frame rate, so it does run a little bit better on Switch 2, but I guess there's still some problems with it that it aren't quite as good about with the PS5 and the Xbox. So if they could polish some of those things up and put it out on Switch 2 again, that would be really awesome, and I would definitely be happy to play that. I put the Assassin's Creed games on here, just in general, right? A lot of them did come to Switch 1, but I'm currently working on playing through the Assassin's Creed series, and especially if they want to put out some of the more modern ones, more modern ones, on Switch 2, that would be great, because I'm really trying to play all the whole series, or at least play quite a few of them, so especially some of the more recent ones, like Assassin's Creed Shadows, Odyssey, those kind of ones. I don't know exactly how difficult it would be for them to put those out on Switch 2. I imagine games like Shadows might have some problems. I don't know. I could be wrong. Maybe they could figure it out. I mean, I guess if you could get a game like Cyberpunk on the Switch 2, then you can probably get Assassin's Creed Shadows. But it just depends on whether or not they want to put in the work, right? That's really what it boils down to. But yeah, I'd love to get the Assassin's Creed games on here. Also, on topic of Ubisoft, I put a new Rayman game, right? So I played Rayman Legends on Wii U, of all things. And I loved Rayman Legends. It was a great game. I want to play Rayman Origins. I know Legends has a lot of the levels from Origins, but I know there's some that aren't in Legends, so I kind of want to play Origins as well and just get a feel for that. See if it's how different it is. But anyway, I guess my point is I would love to have another Rayman game. I'm guessing we never will get another Rayman game. Well, we could maybe get a Rayman game, but I don't know. I'm not, like, gonna bet on it or anything, but I would be down to get another Rayman game. I know Rayman Legends is one of my favorite 2D platformers. It's not, like, it's probably top 5. Well, top 5, maybe. Maybe top 5. Maybe top 5. It's close. If you count all platformers, it's not. But if you count 2D platformers only, it's up there. It's pretty good. It's a really good 2D platformer, and I'd be down to have another one in the same wheelhouse. And the last two things I've put on the list for third parties, I guess they're kind of third parties. For Nintendo, they would be third parties. Those are PlayStation and Xbox, just in general. So obviously, Xbox games, a lot of those are coming over to Switch 2. I named a few specifically, those being Halo and Doom, right? Those would be great over there. But we can get some other Xbox games over here too. I mean, we can get Forza on Switch 2, would be pretty cool. I know they put out Pentiment, right? We get Hi-Fi Rush though, would be cool. Um, I'm sure there's more that I'm just not thinking of. Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, games like that would be cool. And PlayStation just recently has announced a couple games of theirs coming to Xbox. So now PlayStation is also putting out their games everywhere, which is a little weird. I don't think it's a good strategy for them, but if they're going to do it, then they might as well, I might as well take advantage of it. Let's get some PlayStation games on Switch too. I imagine it'll be much more limited. I don't really know which ones exactly they'd want to put out. I'm guessing, though, games coming to Switch 2, it's not going to be like Spider-Man. It's not going to be like Astrobot. So we'll see. But if they want to put out games like that, I would be down to play the next Spider-Man game on Nintendo console instead. I would be down to play Astrobot on Switch 2. Anything like that. That'd be awesome. I'm guessing it never will happen, but it would be pretty cool. So I think that's it. That's my whole list. I guess I can talk about some quick news articles real quick. So a few days ago, this was something that kind of got a lot of people laughing on the internet. There was a Nintendo Today app post where Nintendo accidentally friend-zoned Mario from Princess Peach. The direct quote from one of the posts from the Nintendo Today app is, "Princess Peach and Mario are good friends and help each other out whenever they can." So Mario has been friend zoned from Princess Peach, and I've got to say that's pretty messed up of Princess Peach to string him along for all these years. We've literally seen Princess Peach kiss him on the cheek or on the nose on several occasions. That's pretty messed up of Princess Peach. I just find that funny. A lot of people were talking about that online, how Nintendo did that, and obviously they didn't like do anything like that specifically, but it's just kind of funny. Also, according to GameSpot, and I've actually heard a lot about this in the last couple weeks. The UK, they've passed some, and I don't live in the UK, so I don't know all the details. But they've put out some new online safety act. And some big gaming companies are involved, and they're having to do age verification in certain situations. I even heard about this for some social media things. So I don't know all the details, but I guess Xbox, starting in 2026, they're going to restrict social features for non-verified users to just friends. And I guess some of the stuff I know, like there's the Xbox Network. If you take a screenshot on the Xbox, the current Xbox, it'll automatically post it to a network. I mean, the network, it's like really a stretch calling out a network. Like it's really just, I mean, some pictures. Like you look up a game on the Xbox app and it's like, here's some pictures of people who have played the game. It's like, okay, cool, I guess. Some screenshots and stuff. It's like, all right, but it's not like you can really like add text or like, I mean, it's really like it's so bare bones. I find it so crazy that that's even a thing that they even bother doing. But anyways, I guess some of that stuff's going to be restricted. That's not really a big deal. I don't think anyone's going to be like too heartbroken that they can't post their pictures to the Xbox network, but I know there's probably going to be other things that come from this, from the age verification stuff. I don't know if it's like you got to be, if people under 18 are getting restricted on that. I mean, yeah, I guess I can understand some of the stuff. I know some things that might end up happening are maybe a little bit ridiculous, but that's just how things go. The internet's been around for a while now. Video games have been around for a little while now, and so finally we're going to have some of this legislation passed in some of these countries. I'm sure the U.S. is going to be right behind them on some of this stuff, and while that sometimes can be unfortunate, it could other times be beneficial. So I think it's important to keep an open mind about some of these things. I know most people are pretty upset about the UK laws from what I've heard, and I don't know all the details, so maybe it really is that bad for sometimes. I know Microsoft, they've said so far that no other features like buying and playing games will be restricted, so you can still buy and play games, all the games, regardless of what age you are, which is interesting because if you've seen some of the games on the Switch eShop, I think some of those should probably be restricted too. But anyways, so I don't know. It just we'll see. We'll see what happens. It might not be a big deal. It might be a big deal. We'll see. I don't know. Um, it'll probably mean things for the rest of the industry, though, right? I'm sure this will probably have some sort of ramifications, whether those are like all negative or whether there's some positive, some negative. I'm sure there's going to be some nuance to it. But it's an interesting thing that we'll have to keep a watch on and see where things go in the future. So maybe we'll get some updates on this. But for now, I guess the UK, they've done some weird stuff. Supposedly, well, I don't say supposedly, I did say supposedly, but I don't mean supposedly. Definitively, Xbox has announced that Hollow Knight Silksong will be playable at Gamescom. So Gamescom's in August. I think it's, let's see, 20th to the 24th. So you'll be able to try out the new Xbox Ally and ROG Xbox Ally X. You'll be able to try those out. You can also, oh great, well you can try out Roblox. Okay, so Xbox has announced that you can try out Roblox on the ROG Xbox Ally X. I'm so excited to try out Roblox at Gamescom. Who goes to Gamescom to try out Roblox on the ROG Xbox Ally X? Like I feel like that's for like some like pretty hardcore gamers that are going to Gamescom. Geez, I don't know. And Sea of Thieves, I mean, okay, cool. But I guess I'm sure people will be much more interested in Hollow Knight Silksong. I know lots of people have really been interested in Silksong. I haven't played Hollow Knight, but I am starting to get into some Metroidvanias and some Metroid likes. So I'm sure at some point I will end up playing Hollow Knight and maybe Silksong as well. We'll see. But it probably won't be anytime too soon for me. Let's see. Ninja Gaiden 4 is also getting a public demo there. Grounded 2. Um, but that's coming out before games come, I think, right? So it'll just be showing you how Grounded 2 works on the ROG Xbox LAX. That's pretty cool, though. For third party, there's also going to be Borderlands 4, Onimusha, Metal Gear Solid Delta, Snake Eater, yep, Invincible Versus, and Super Meat Boy 3D. These are all going to be available to try out on the ROG Xbox LAX at Gamescom. So that's interesting. I mean, I know Hollow Knight Silksong is probably the most interesting of those for most people. But I guess it's cool that you'll be able to try some stuff out. That's cool. I don't know. The ROG Xbox LAX, I still think it's a stupid thing. I don't think they ever should have done it. But it is what it is. That's just how things are going to be, right? That's just how things are going to be, right? A lot of news this week about how everybody's concerned about console exclusives going away because Xbox, obviously, they've been putting all sorts of games on other platforms. You know, you got Xbox games on PlayStation, you've got Xbox games on PC, you've got Xbox games now coming to Nintendo consoles even. They're just everywhere. And finally, PlayStation's actually doing that kind of stuff too, which is a little concerning in some ways. I guess Sony now is hiring for a senior director of multi-platform and account management, uh, which Kotaku points out is a fancy way of saying someone who will help Sony profit from bringing its games to more storefronts. This person will be in charge of global commercial strategy for PlayStation Studio software titles across all digital platforms beyond PlayStation hardware, including Steam, the Epic Games Store, Xbox, Nintendo, and mobile. So yes, as it sounds, it seems like PlayStation is porting like a significant amount of their games to other platforms. I don't think they should do that. I think that's a terrible idea. I don't think these companies should be giving up their exclusives. Maybe there's a few things here and there that they can share between other, maybe there's some partnerships and stuff every now and then. But I think generally, I don't think it's a good idea for consoles to lose exclusives. It's bad enough for PlayStation and Xbox that they don't have unique gimmicks to sell their consoles, and their consoles are only built off power alone. It's bad enough there, but now if all the consoles have the same games too, that just sucks. Like that doesn't make sense, right? Like if so already people are just they have their loyalty, they're going to buy whatever they want to buy, it doesn't matter. So why give them even more reason to buy something else? I just don't understand. I'm sure I'll talk about this at more length, but I don't want to dwell on it for a whole half an hour here. It is what it is, but it is a mess. I guess Tencent. So Tencent, they're a big game company now. They're Tencent's like if you don't know, they're like the biggest company in China. And they're one of the biggest companies in the world now. I believe the Xi Jinping sits on their board. Basically, I mean, it's a mess. There's obviously a lot of corruption, a lot of because there's a law in China that any third party or any external company, I think, to put out anything in China, or maybe it's just for video games and movies and stuff, whatever it is, there's some sort of law that makes it so that companies have to partner with another company in China to put out something in China. Which, if you think about it, it kind of makes some sense, right? They want to promote local business and stuff. The problem is most of those companies basically are forced to one option because there's only one that really has the resources to do a lot of that stuff, and that ends up being Tencent. And also Tencent has now bought up a bunch of companies. It's kind of like the Embracer Group, that kind of idea. And now they're putting out all sorts of video games, and I don't love the idea, but it is what it is. That's just how things are gonna go. And so you had games like Black Myth Wukong last year, right? That was a big game last year. Now I guess they're making a new game, and they're getting sued by Sony. So Light of Motoram was announced last year, and it looks a little bit, just a wee tad, like Horizon Zero Dawn and Horizon Forbidden West. I mean, if you look at screenshots from the two games, I mean, they're like literally the exact same thing. It's like 1-to-1. Like the promotional art and everything. I mean, seriously, it is like the same game. So Sony is attempting to sue them. This seems a little bit like a Pokemon and Pal World kind of situation. But yeah, so I don't know what all the details are. I don't think we know much yet. They haven't. Neither company's provided any comments. But I guess it seems like at some point there might be some sort of some sort of legal battle here, or some sort of settlement or something. I don't know all the details, but I don't think anybody knows all the details except for obviously Sony and Tencent. This is very, it's not very public so far, but I'm sure we'll have more details eventually. But I just think that's kind of interesting. I know the Pokemon Company and Pocket Pair with Pal World. That was an interesting thing that happened mainly last year. So now we have a similar situation this year, this time with Sony, and I'm sure Sony is going to get way less um, complaints from it from the general public. But oh well, that's just how it goes, right? What a double standard we have. And I guess that's going to be it. I actually did not expect this episode to be long again. I figured this was going to be a struggling episode where I didn't have much to talk about. But I guess my wish list gave us a lot of content to talk about, and I think it went interesting. I think there was some good some good points, and I hope it was entertaining. So I guess that's going to be it for this here episode of this here podcast of this here uh month. I don't know, whatever. But of course, like I already mentioned earlier, we are going to start every other day, or sorry, wow, every other day, every other week podcast episodes. So the next podcast episode is not coming out the first week of August. It's coming out like the second week of August. Not next Tuesday, but the Tuesday after. So not 7 days from now, but 14 days from now. You guys know how that works, obviously. But yes, I know that change might not be welcome from some people, but I really just feel that it makes more sense because that way I'll have been able to play more things for podcast episodes, and hopefully the podcast episodes will be longer and they'll also be more involved. They'll have more to talk about. They'll be more interesting. That's the idea, right? So who knows? Who knows what's going to happen? But yes, it's going to stay on Tuesday, at least for the time being, and it's going to be every other week, at least for the time being. So expect the next one in 14 days. I guess with that said, you can subscribe to the YouTube channel if you're not subscribed. The link is in the description, but you're also probably watching here for most of you, so you can just subscribe right there. You can also subscribe to the Minecraft YouTube channel. I've been doing a lot of stuff over there. So you can find that on my main YouTube channel. You can follow me over on Blue Sky, and you can follow the podcast over on Blue Sky. That's interesting too. You can join the community Discord server. We're starting a Minecraft server over there for the whole community. So if you're somebody who plays Minecraft, you can do that. That would be pretty cool. We'd be glad to have you. You can have some conversations over there about video games. There's lots of channels dedicated to specific video games over there, so that'd be pretty cool. And then finally, you can email the show with any questions, any comments, any concerns, any ideas, any whatever it is. You can email the show at notjustnintendo@gmail.com. That is NOTJUSTNINTENDO@gmail.com. Obviously, all one word because that's how emails work. And if you're listening on Spotify or on YouTube, you can just comment. But if you're on like Amazon, you have to email. And I guess that's going to do it for everybody. So thanks again for watching. Hopefully next week I'll have a lot more to say about Bananza specifically, and maybe even some other stuff like Final Fantasy 3, and maybe some Yakuza 0. I said next week. I meant 2 weeks from now. It's going to be hard to adjust. But again, thanks everybody, and I'm not going to hold you up too long. Goodbye.